I'm Marie Vigourou.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And this is Rude Eats, a delicious podcast where we sink our teeth into every episode of the show Hannibal.
My friends call me a killer if you're still hanging around. You spread all of these rumors that I am the guy who did all of these crimes. I thought you wanted me better, someone you wouldn't use. You said he must be a killer, so now when we talk I have anger issues. You said there's no encephalitis. Now we're knee deep in my broken psyche, and you're eating my friend. You're a cannibal now. What me were you feeding to me at your dinner party? I'm a cannibal now. All I needed was a friend. Cannibal, you're a cannibal. How? Don't even try to pretend. Hey, Hannibal, where's Abigail now? I know it's really Hannibal, and you frame me for murder and feed me in the ear. I know it's really Hannibal, and you smell my name right next to the ear. You could have been a real friend that taught me all about who I am. I thought you were a real friend, but honestly you're not. Knee deep in my broken psyche, and you're eating my friend. Hug me where you're fitting to me at our dinner parties. All I needed was a friend. Don't even try to pretend. You fucked with my head and blame it on the fever. You suspect really up. You wonder why I let her back into our friends. You cut me and I did it. I have to tell the truth, and I'm born know you did it. I hate how that you changed me so much. I question myself. I hate how that you changed me so much. You can go to hell.
And we're back, Mary.
We are so back.
Hurtling towards the conclusion of season 2. Wild things happening. This episode is
So many wild things.
I think it likes, like, not to make a pendulum reference, but it really is both sides of the pendulum. Like, we have some pretty low lows in this episode in terms of, like,
Yeah.
Hannibal stuff that we like and don't like, and we have some extreme high highs. And crazy shit is revealed. And I just want to say, if you haven't joined the Rude Eats Discord server, you need to do so immediately. There's a link in the show notes. It goes to a link tree. There's an invite on the link tree. There's a channel called Mary's Reactions, and pretty much every Sunday after we record, she goes and watches the next episode and then reacts. And it's amazing to watch. Your reactions on this episode were incredible last weekend. So.
I feel like I didn't post that much actually about this episode, but there were so many things. Anyway, I'm so excited to talk about my controversial theory.
I'm
so excited
to get into this. I don't think we have any admin this week. I don't think everything's kind of...
No, I don't think we have any admin. I mean, thank you everybody who listens to us.
Yes.
We appreciate you.
We're getting
Continue
close to a
listening.
feedback
Tell
episode.
your friends.
So I guess if you have opinions about season 2, which... And from what I've seen in the Hannibal fandom, everybody will have some opinions.
Yes.
But if you have some stuff that you want to talk about, come write us a letter at our Gmail address, which is also in the link tree, because I don't remember it because I never check it. But yeah, we'll do it. We'll do a feedback episode. We'll have a special guest on, and we'll be able to have a lot of fun. So come do that. What are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about Hannibal Season 2, Episode 11, Konomono. And the episode summary goes, Jack and team discover the truth of Freddie Lounds' disappearance. Hannibal shows Will how much Abigail reminded him of his sister. And I have to say that both of these sentences are kind of not true.
But
I'm just going to put that out
but
there.
they're also both kind of true.
I mean, just like this show is kind of telling you the truth, but kind of not. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I don't trust this show anymore. This was directed by David Slade, written by Jeff Flaming, Andy Black, and Brian Fuller, and it originally aired on May 9th, 2014.
So can you tell us what a konomono is?
Yes, so it's getting really much harder to find images of dishes on Instagram that are not like Hannibal related. But the few that I found were really really gorgeous. So konomono is a sour pickled vegetable, usually soured with vinegar, typical of Japanese cuisine. So think like elevated pickle. And you mentioned when we were talking about the theme for this episode that this is like the second sour dish in a row. And I just find it interesting that the show, I think, is foreshadowing some stuff through taste here because particularly through this idea of sourness. And so again, this idea of like sourness, pickling, fermentation. And I think it's finally time for us to talk about the theme of transformation.
Transformation. And it's, you know, when we did this, I was almost like, haven't we done that before? And so I went back through some of our themes and realized like a lot of our themes could be applied to transformation, right? Like, and I think it's because Hannibal's show is at its core very much about change. Like the overall like theme to Hannibal is, I mean, maybe not the overall, but like it's a strong current that runs through the entire show, right? Of people changing, forcing people to change, having people change or react to different things. But we haven't done transformation, and so I think this is a really good episode, especially considering the opening scene where we see a literal transformation. And it's...
I also find it interesting. I'm so sorry to cut you off, but I also find it interesting that like this idea of transformation through destruction, which we see a lot in this episode. So definitely something to keep in mind, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
So transformation comes from Latin transformare, which is made from the word trans and formare. So trans being like it's a prefix that means across, beyond, through, or on the other side of, and form, which is to create, to give life to give shape or structure, to make, to build, to construct. So yeah, I kind of love that. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, this is going to be super fun to talk about as we go through this. Again, there's so much in this episode that happens, and like some theories are confirmed, and some things happen that are
other theories are hinted at.
Which we're going to get at. Mary is going to either enrage the entire fandom or make them.
Excited.
Yeah, it's going to be super amazing. In fact, let's just get into it. You ready to do the beat by eat?
Let's go.
So we're going to start out outside in the snow. We see the demon man, the demon antlered man, as he stalks this stag that is ahead of him, and the stag collapses. And as the stag collapses on its side, we see the birth of what I called in my notes the will stag, and what the script refers to as the Wildigo. Which is
unbelievable.
Just so like this show could be so much worse. every time I see something like that in the script, like something like incredibly cheesy, I'm like, wow, we dodged a bullet in some cases. But yeah, so we see
that is the difference between taste and lack of taste. Just saying.
But we see the birth of Will as this antlered man, as he transformed himself from the stag. Which it's interesting to me because the stag in the show has always kind of represented Hannibal to a degree.
Yes.
And now we see the birth of Will through the representation of Hannibal as Will originally saw him, not as Will sees him now, which is this man demon, right? That representation has changed.
Yes.
And so we see this, we see not only the transformation of Will into this antlered man, kind of implying his embrace of being a killer, right? His control over himself to be a killer, and then also like it's kind of confirmation that Hannibal in Will's mind has transformed completely from a antlered stag, which is kind of terrifying, to this actual demon, like this really horrifying creature. And I find that interesting that we're kind of seeing two transformations at once.
I absolutely love that, and that's honestly, when I was watching this, that's really what came to my mind. It's the fact that there's now such a difference between like the demon man, like the demon stag man, and the actual stag, because before they were kind of used like interchangeably, whereas now like they're two separate entities. And so to see Will being reborn, right, from the stag, like becoming himself, like half man and half beast, I think is like I like a terrifying thought if you take it seriously, right?
Mm-hmm. Like, and the idea that this is going on in Will's mind,
without the encephalitis, by the way.
Without the encephalitis, yeah. And it's interesting in the script. This is placed directly before the scene in the show where he's awoken by Alana. So in the script we go from this to him sweating in his bed. Like this is an actual dream that he's having. It was rearranged in editing so that we kind of saw some more interactions for Alana to be a little bit more suspicious, right? So
interesting.
I just kind of like that kind of confirms to me that this is literally happening in Will's head, right? Like this isn't some like metaphor that they're just like, this is literally happening in Will's head. And it's like you said, it's terrifying.
It's terrifying. And I think, and again, like with this question of like the fact that we didn't know Will pre-encephalitis, like we can now say that like nightmares were a part of his life before.
Yes.
Because you don't go from 0 to 100 like that, right? Like you have to have some kind of like, you have to have a foundation of nightmares before they get to that level of nightmare.
Or that,
and so it's
or that like his but his killing of Garrett Jacob Hobbs was so foundational to him as a person that it completely changed him. So he began having it
completely
then, right?
rewired his brain.
Yeah, which I would imagine killing somebody would definitely like it would have that effect on me. Like even no matter how it happened, like I would be like, oh my god, I took this person from everyone. Like it would be. And I was watching Autumn's comfort show is Chernobyl, the HBO show. She just loves like, I don't know what it is, but she's like I'm just going to turn on the first episode of Chernobyl, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is bleak. When she's over there just with the smile, like looking at her fish. But the way they talk about lives in that show of like, you know, how many lives will be lost, and like probably like in the hundreds of thousands, and you're just like, Jesus fucking Christ, like it just becomes insane. Anyway, we go from this incredibly gross and horrible, like bloody, like birth to Hannibal's house, where we see this kind of beautiful songbird in a cage. We hear like the tinkling piano music. This was taken directly from the Silence of the Lambs soundtrack, like when Hannibal Lecter is in the cage and he escapes and kills the two guards. So that's where you know that song from.
Okay.
There's
that's interesting that they're showing a bird in a cage.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Brian Fuller, I'm under your bed.
He's so good. There's a bunch of references to. There's not a bunch, but there are several references to the Hannibal.
Oh my god.
Franchise as a whole in this episode that we'll talk about. And then we see we see like, we don't see the bird being drowned, but we see like jars filling up with liquor. And Hannibal brings out this dish that is literally on fire in a small bowl. And he sets it in front of Will. And I just wanted to point out that throughout the show, we rarely see Hannibal, number one, eating with anybody, just alone. Like I feel like it's rare for him to be doing this, and he's sitting directly across from Will, which I guess he also sits directly across from Jack. So maybe that's not as important as I originally thought.
Yes, but no. But hold on to that thought, because with Jack, there's a lot more distance. Usually, they're sitting at each end of the table, not like the short end of the table. The only time that happens is when after Bella's suicide attempt.
Yeah, you're right. That's where he kind of closes in. Yeah.
Exactly, to close in, to show that there's a closing in, but also to show like an increased intimacy in that moment, right? So they've used distance at tables in order to show levels of intimacy, right? And also levels of power.
Yes.
Hannibal is always seated at the head of the table.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hannibal describes the process of drowning this songbird. I cannot remember the name. Is it an Ortolan, thank you.
Yeah.
Basically, you drown it in Amaranic. You dried it in liquor.
Armagnac?
Thank you, Jesus
Armagnac.
Christ. Thank you for being my
Fine,
vocabulary.
It's French.
And then Will points out that these songbirds are endangered, and Hannibal just responds, "Whom amongst us is not?" which I really love. Will points out that he hasn't been gorged or drowned or plucked and roasted like this bird. And
Yet.
Hannibal says that this meal is usually eaten with your face covered with a shroud to hide their faces from God, because it's so decadent. It's such a you're eating this endangered species whole, bones and all, as we're going to find out.
He brings the word shame into it,
Yes.
right? Which again, like with Daredevil coming out very soon, it was very, very front of mind when I was listening to this. I was like, yes, so shameful, yes.
Be shamed, my hero. Be shamed, my Blorbo.
I love my Blorbos.
Will lifts up his bird, and I think I've heard of this meal before, Hannibal. I think probably through various media or maybe even like books or something. I don't know, but I've always been struck by this because like we see this kind of very slow process as they both take the bird inside their mouths and begin to chew, and like especially when Will does it, like I mean they roast this bird like bones and all, like they're eating it bones and all,
Yeah.
and like there's a beak. So it fascinates me like that this is not like 100% like sumptuous, right? Like there has to be like a grit to this with the bones that brings probably an interest. Like I feel like this is expert level eating, like that I could never really. You know what I'm saying? Like Tom Colicchio would enjoy this, like, but Jeremy Greer cannot. Like I still eat ham and cheese sandwiches, Tom, so I can't hang out.
To me, this sounds like a sensory nightmare, to be honest with
Sure,
you. And
yeah,
like,
that too.
I'm not excited or titillated by it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and we should mention like the way this is filmed is so sexual in nature. Like we get up close shots of Will's throat as he swallows, up close pictures of like their eyes as their eyes are rolling back to enjoy this delicacy, Hannibal especially. Will as he kind of looks in the air as he's taking in all of the taste and these textures, and it's very much
and
like
he's
this
putting the bird in his mouth whole. Like there was something about that I was like, that is a euphemism.
It's
for something
100% a euphemism. Like this is a sex scene, right? Like this is as close as sex. Well, I mean, last episode was a literal sex scene, but like this is very close to that, which is saying something,
Yes, exactly.
right? And
well, they primed us with the last episode, right? So now we see it even more, right?
yes, absolutely. And it's just again, like we talk about this a lot, but like. How could folks miss this? Like I don't. Like, these two men are just so obviously horny for one another. Like for whatever.
But I don't think that people miss it. To be honest with you, because
you're not wrong.
Okay, because I saw a review. Oh my god, I have to read this out loud on here because it's just so funny. I won't give the person's name even though they use their full government name on there. But they gave a review of what's it called? Of Hannibal. In the year of the Lord 2025, February 15th, 2025. And this is like an ordinary person who just left a review on Hannibal and said, weird, pretentious, and unusually homoerotic. All else aside, though, Mads Mikkelsen has an undeniably captivating presence. And I'm just, sir,
What is the
usual level of homoeroticism that is acceptable to you? Because unusually homoerotic must mean that there is a usual homoerotic.
I love that so much.
And this person gave it 2.5 stars. And so people do not miss it. I just think that they don't like it.
Sure, yeah. I wonder, like villains are so deified in our society. Like I wonder how much of an effect something like Silence of the Lambs coming out. Like I wonder if like Hannibal Lecter was Jokerfied before we really knew what Jokerfied was, and you know what I'm saying? Like I wonder if like people were kind of like, that dude's bad and so he's cool, and then like when this show comes out they're like, and he's gay. Like like if a Batman movie came out and the Joker was gay, People would be like, those guys with Joker tattoos and Joker posters on their walls would be very confused, right? Like they would be,
And he's gay.
and he's gay.
I'm crying.
This is also like they literally talk about how euphoric. Hannibal says that this meal, the first time he had this, left him euphoric.
Yes.
Which I think is, you know, talking about this as a sex scene is important to talk about.
Well, yeah, they're talking about the afterglow, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All of this, right, that we've been talking about, and he's gay. But this is also like another moment of grooming from Hannibal, I think, because he's literally like pushing Will to do things that he's describing as shameful or as needing to hide from God, right? And so maybe he can only whisper through the chrysalis, but he's definitely whispering with a lot of conviction, right? Like, you know, Hannibal is like saying like, oh, I did nothing, but I'm like, I don't know, nothing. Maybe we just don't have the same definition of nothing. But also to be fair, Will is very much going along with it. Like he's taking every opportunity to like do the shameful thing, quote unquote, right? And I just want to be careful because I don't want to portray Will as a victim anymore, because I think that he was in season 1, but I really don't think that he is anymore. And the end of this episode seems to agree with me.
Yeah, I think, you know, Will has a lot more agency in season 2 than he did season 1, obviously. Yeah. So it's I don't think it's correct to portray him as a victim at all. And it's fascinating to me, like, that you said this was grooming, because I'm just imagining somebody like defending, like I wasn't grooming them, I was just whispering into their chrysalis.
Exactly. I mean, let's
one sounds a lot better than the other when you put it that way. But that's that this is Hannibal doing that. He's breaking down barriers. He's giving, I think in Hannibal's mind, he's giving Will permission to engage with all of those urges, those dark urges that we've talked about in the past.
I mean, the thing is that grooming has kind of especially now, like has a very, very specific meaning, but the reality is that it can be used for a lot of other things. Like it's not just like grooming children into very specific scenarios. Like that's, you know, in this case, Hannibal is like preparing Will for what he wants him to become, kind of thing.
To embrace all of those the urges, and you know, just like Hannibal has
shameful urges, right?
And
shameful urges.
As Hannibal talks about how euphoric the first time the stitch made him, Will says that he was euphoric when he killed Freddy. And he says that his heart rate didn't even become elevated. And Hannibal is almost proud when he says, you know, that's kind of a sign of a true killer. And he says that your design is evolving. And Will takes this in and is like, and says, killing is changing the way that I think. And Hannibal responds with what I can only describe as the most lovingly words ever penned to another person, which is, you must understand that blood and breath are only elements to fuel your radiance. And like, I've been married for 20 years. I don't think I've ever said anything like that to Autumn before. Like, I don't think I've ever approached this level of just intense romance. Like, this is like, they should just be engaged at this point. Like, an Elvis impersonator should pop out and just marry them at the table. Like, I'm dead serious.
I mean, to be fair, maybe Autumn just hasn't been killing enough people for you to be able to say that to her, right? Like, let's be real about that, because that's what he's saying. He's like, blood and breath, like that's about murder. Murder is fueling your radiance, and so maybe other things fuel Autumn's radiance, but not murder.
I also just want to mention like the transformation that we're talking about from blood and breath into pure radiance, right? Like into blood and breath into light, which is kind of a running theme with Hannibal. Like he's talked about this kind of stuff before. He's used these similar metaphors about transforming into light. And I find that fascinating. Like you would imagine like he would be more fascinated with the dark, but he's not. Like his arrogance like allows him to embrace light instead. So,
well, I think it's this idea of hiding in plain sight also that is so appealing to him. And in order to do that, then you need to be able to face the light, right? And to face eating the ortolan without shrouding your face. And I think that like it requires a certain level of shamelessness that I think Hannibal embodies kind of perfectly.
Absolutely.
And I do think that in this moment, like there's a bit of a hint at Will's what I think is going to be like in his inevitable, eventual, at least perceived betrayal of Hannibal. And if he's starting to be like, but he said that he was pretty, and then just tucks like his slutty curly like hair behind his ear. I'm wondering if Will is starting to kind of feel stuff for Hannibal.
I think he
is, because he was, last episode, but I don't know. I think he's starting to realize it. It's coming to light.
We're a non-spoiler podcast, so we don't, we have absolutely no idea what's going to happen in the next episode. Even I have forgotten for the purposes of the next 2.5 hours. But I think like at the end of this episode, it's revealed that, Freddie Lounds is alive. So we know, and we're going to talk about that in detail when it happens, but I want to bring it up now because like, as Will is having these conversations, like you just said, like Will is starting to have these feelings. I think that there's a real struggle in Will there's a balancing act, but I think he's very, very seduced by the dark side, right? Like I think he's
absolutely.
I think there's an aspect of this where he's similar to Daredevil, where he's struggling to do the wrong thing to be right, or the right thing for the wrong reasons, right? Like everybody listen to the outtakes for a big Daredevil conversation, by the way, if you're wondering why we keep bringing that up.
We're so excited about Daredevil. It's coming out like this week, and so we're like,
so we cut from here to a parking lot. And there's an attendant in a booth. We start hearing this weird noise, and then down the ramp comes a very gruesome sight. This is a body that's been strapped into a wheelchair and set on fire, flying down this parking lot ramp. And then the attendant, like we see it go by, and the attendant like immediately grabs a fire extinguisher and runs over it. I'm like, good training.
Why was that funny to me, though?
Right? Like I thought the same thing. Like I don't know why, but like it's a very real response. Like it's exactly what you would do. But at the same time, I was like, what are we doing? And we see this horrible, gruesome sight. Like it rolls all the way into a parking spot that says F Lounds. So this was Freddie Lounds' parking lot. We presume that this is going to be the body of Freddie Lounds. So this is a direct reference to Manhunter and Red Dragon movies. This fire scene, this wheelchair fire scene, is probably directly out of Manhunter. And going into the parking lot, I think in Red Dragon, Freddie Lounds is abducted by the villain of Red Dragon from his. Oh no, I know what it is. The villain of Red Dragon parks in Freddie Lounds' parking spot, and so like Freddie gets out and is like, "What are you doing, man?" And then gets immediately abducted, and then strapped to a wheelchair and burned and sent through a thing to fuck with Will Graham.
What?
So it's interesting the way that they just again kind of Brian Fuller like taking these like bits and pieces from the books and the movies and remixing them into something almost new. But yeah, this is an insane
That's the best
sight.
kind of fan fiction.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I have to say that the first time that I watched this, I was like, because obviously the first time that you watch this is very different from the second time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you cannot re-engineer that first time of watching it, right? And I think I'm starting to realize why people are loving watching me watch it, because I'm like, there's no way that you can watch this the same way the second time around. So the first time I watched this, I was like, oh, so this was a fun date for them, right? They had shameful dinner and then they set the corpse of a woman on fire. That sounds like a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And I do want to say, right, we know that she's actually alive at the end, but as all of this was happening, I was like, oh my God, like, and I know that I really disliked the character of Freddie Lounds, but I was like, even in death, like, they're not even leaving her body alone. Like, there was something like there was something truly, again, like I talked last week about how disturbing it was to see her doing quote unquote all the right things that women are told to do if they're being attacked or not, in order not to be attacked. And here, like, she is literally dead and her corpse is set on fire. And I'm just like, even in death, like, women are abused and assaulted. And anyway, again, the first time I watched it, it was not a fun time for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the wheelchair, the corpse in a wheelchair on fire, I think gets funnier, like, the more you see it, because it becomes less gruesome, right, and less realistic. And then also, like, you realize, like, this is not the person that you thought it was towards the end. Also, I just want to point out that, like, you're not wrong in thinking that, and that Freddy's body, what we presume to think is Freddy's body in this episode is transformed not once but twice, right? Like we see her transformed. Well, she's transformed into this, which is like this gruesome display, and then also we're going to get a second gruesome display in a little while.
And it's the fact that, because like Will is undergoing transformation, but it's a willing transformation, right? Like Will is willing, whereas Freddy is dead. Like she cannot consent to any of this, right? Like she has, as far as we know in this moment, she fought against it very, very hard. And it's like, again, like I find that to be like a complete, like, is it a transformation if you don't agree to it? You know, like what's the, I don't know. Thoughts.
I mean, it's, I think there's an aspect of this where it's almost like a mentor-mentee relationship to a degree, or like a expert apprentice kind of situation, where you're agreeing to learn things, right? And like I'm specifically thinking about, because I was just watching Game of Thrones, so specifically thinking about like a blacksmith apprentice, and where like your whole body is going to undergo a transformation because you agreed to do this. Like you're going to become much much stronger. You're going to be like you're going to be like rugged in a way that you probably weren't before. And I think that that's what like Will is signing up for. And it's interesting, like a consensual transformation, like allowing somebody to mold you is, when they're a serial killer, when you believe them to be a serial killer, is a choice. I mean, that's a definitely choice. Like that's a you thing. I'm not going to do it, but like you do you, homie. Like I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly.
We pretty much smash cut from here to the lab, where the ERT has confirmed that this is the body of Freddy Lounds via her teeth. And we see this like gruesome rictus of a smile with her teeth. They confirm that she was dead before she was burned, and they find an incision on her back, which is cut muscles with a hunting knife. And I think it's Z that asked, or maybe it's Price that asked, why did he burn her? And it's Z that responds, like, how many people did she burn in her career? Which is, kind of an interesting thing. But Hannibal says, like, no, this isn't about, like, revenge. Like, this is sacred. And then Will brings in, like, the fucking weirdness. And I just, like, you don't see it, but, like, off screen, you just see Z rolling his eyes, right? When Will starts to talk, because he's like, Freddy was fuel for this killer, and she won't rise from the ashes, but the killer will. And you can just see, like, Z going, Jesus fucking Christ. Just a sliver of evidence in what you say, please. Just a sliver of goddamn evidence.
Z is like, I shook your hand a couple of episodes ago, but like, can you please stop being so fucking weird?
Can you imagine how Scully would react if she had to go on a case with Will? Like, just
I think she would handcuff him to a desk and just be like, you stay here.
You stay here. I'm going to go solve the crime.
But can we pause here for a second to just look at the language that Will is using? Because Hannibal just told him that, blood and breath are only elements undergoing change to fuel your radiance. And so now this guy is talking about Freddy Lounds being fuel to the killer, like right in front of Jack Crawford. He goes on a rant about fire, which we know to associate with Hannibal being mythical and destroying and creating. And I'm just like, this is a love poem.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he is responding to Hannibal in kind. And as Alana's going to say later about a different crime, like this is a courtship, right? Right. She's going to spot it.
Right in front of Jack Crawford. Like it's just so brazen. So again, shameful. The Ortolan, right? Yeah. Like standing in the light, like hiding in plain sight. It's all of that. It's so good.
We go from this to Hannibal's office, where Margot has seen a positive pregnancy test. And as Margot and Hannibal discuss this, the camera turns and we realize that Will is in the room. And she gives almost like a fake apology to Will, where she says, like, I'm not proud of myself. And he says, nor should you be. And there's a moment here where he's like, I thought you said, and she just like looks away from it. I lied. This actor's Margot is so good. It's just like so aloof and dispassionate. It's just so fun to watch her.
Can you imagine having this conversation in front of your therapist that you have feelings for?
No.
Like this is all
so awkward.
Yeah.
So super awkward.
I'm like, oh, that's a choice. Like, what a choice.
Hannibal says that he knew about Margot's desire to have children, but not that she was going to use Will to do it. And Margot is like, hey, like, you know, I don't really want anything from you that you don't want to give. And says like, you know, she's always viewed men as kind of optional, but she's not against her child having a male presence as long as it's not my brother. He's not good with children, which we're gonna see in Gross Relief later.
And I just have to say that Margot is a queen, because I always thought men were optional in child rearing. Like, yes, girl. And listen, like, I'm going to say this because I want to make it clear, but of course, lying to sexual partners is bad, right? Bad. TM. And Margot did a bad thing, capital B, capital T. And if you are the owner of a penis who has one night stands with people who have vaginas and you do not want to have a baby, wrap that shit up, period.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, there you go.
They, that old, like, thing that gets, I don't know who's originally said it, but it's a quote that revolves around the internet sometimes of like, if men needed birth control, like, you would be able to get that shit in a vending machine on every corner.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like it'd be that kind of thing. And absolutely. Right. Like it's one of those situations.
Like you said, like, you know, so I don't know. Anyway, let's not get into the politics of it, but I'm sorry. Like, how are you not using protection with a one night stand? How, like, anyway. This is a thing. Like, well, like, Will, what were you thinking? Like, seriously, like, you don't know this woman from Adam, and like, you're going to go in like completely, like, what are you doing? Yep.
We cut from here to the Verger estate, which I had forgotten until I was doing some research for this episode. Is called Muskrat Farms, by the way. I don't think that comes up in the show, but yeah, we're on Muskrat Farm.
That is so funny, considering, like,
yeah,
oh my
just
God.
Everything about the Vergers,
Wow.
yeah, because you would call like Mason Verger like a muskrat, and like that would be probably insulting to the muskrats that you know. So,
absolutely, yeah.
We see this group of kids kind of walking through the barn, being led by a teacher, and we get the idea that like this is a school tour trip to the farm, right? And Mason separates one. This is young Franklin. If you think Franklin has it bad in the show, all I will say is that the books do Franklin way more dirty. But Mason begins to question Franklin about his home life, which is, you know, his mom, who's actually his foster mom, and his, you know, kitty cat named Kitty Cat. And then he begins to kind of not berate the child, but kind of break the child down, saying like, you know, you're not going to be able to live with mom anymore. You're going to have to leave Kitty Cat behind because, you know, mama lost her job, so she can't foster you anymore. So you're going to have to, or, you know, maybe something's wrong with you. Maybe they just don't want you anymore. And of course, this child begins to cry. And Mason does something very strange, which is take out this like little tab of absorbent paper and like absorbs the tears of this child into this piece of paper and then puts it in his little cigarette case, and then tosses the child a chocolate, and, you know, sends him on his way. And Margot just got through saying like that he's not good with children, so here's like an active look at like his abuse towards children without, you know, actually laying his hands on the child in a rough fashion. So
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like this is, yeah, like you said, I can only imagine what happens to Franklin in the books, because, like, I assume that, again, standards and practices were like, yeah, we're not doing that. And, yeah, I hate Mason Verger. Like, feed him to the dogs. Like we need a Game of Thrones style dogs. Like, you know, I can't remember what season it is, but they're going to feed one of them to the dogs. And I'm just like, this is what needs to happen to Mason, in my opinion. Like, that scene just boiled my blood so much, and I skipped it on rewatch. I didn't rewatch it again because I not for me. That is not the horror that I signed up to watch when I watched Hannibal.
Folks at home, you can stop screaming at your radio right now.
Are they actually going to feed them to the dogs?
I will not say. But people can stop. People at home, please. I just want you to know that, like, Mary goes into these episodes completely spoiler free. The only time I've ever told her anything that's going to happen is about some specific specific plot line here is kind of a trigger warning, or content warning rather. And I just I just want the people at home to know that they can stop screaming at their iPods and radios and earphones. If you're like sweeping your floor right now and listening to the podcast, like I'm sorry. You can stop. Like I know if you fell over, you can just stop. You can get back up and continue what you're doing.
I can't believe I did this. Is somebody keeping track of these? I need somebody with an Excel sheet.
We need
somebody with an
Excel
Excel sheet.
Yeah. We also see during this Mason dropping this tear that he absorbed into a martini and drinking it. And as we see him doing this, he's like insufferable looking, and the music is swelled to this overwhelming cacophony. And we go from this music to Will, who is literally sweating in his bed, which we haven't seen in a while. But like you said, this kind of confirms that even outside the influence of encephalitis, like this is still part of who Will is. Whether or not that started before him killing Garrett Jacob Hobbs or not, like I think it's immaterial. Like he's still like this.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I think again, like the fact that this was happening before, maybe like a lot less, right? But it was still something that happened to him before, would explain why he didn't notice the encephalitis when it started, right? Mm-hmm. Because like, he was like, oh yeah, I'm just not in a good place because now like this is just happening a little bit more often than it used to before. Anyway.
And it makes perfect sense for somebody that is this much of an empath to take this stuff home and to have to deal with it, like, while you're asleep, right? Where we seem to deal, where most humans seem to deal with a lot of their problems. It's like, I'm just going to run through, let my brain sort through this while I'm not doing anything. He's awoken by a knock at the door, and it's Alana. Wearing blue. And their dogs run off and play together, which is kind of fascinating to me. And Will is kind of taken back by her appearance. Like, do we even do friendly visits anymore? And she's like, this isn't a friendly visit. And she's obviously like super terrified of this new version of Will that's before her. And she's here to find out if he killed, Freddie Lowndes, because she truly believes that he did at this point. And he says, I told everyone that Hannibal was a killer and no one believed me. Just like no one would believe you if you told them I was a killer. This is, and Alana is like shook, fam. Like she is very shaken by this statement.
But I mean, so was I. Again, the first time that I watched this, I was like, because I was so convinced that he had killed her, right? Because, like, again, what other possible conclusion could you get to from having seen the last episode? And so, like, Will is truly terrifying in this moment because it when I first watched it, I was like, that is a threat. But then when I'm rewatching it, I'm like, oh no, that's just like resentment.
Yes.
Like, that's not a threat, it's resentment. But it's so terrifying as a first-time watcher.
And she says that she describes Hannibal and Will's relationship as destructive, saying that Hannibal is no good for you. And Will says he's good enough for you, which also takes her back, like him twisting that around on her. And he tells her to hold on, that he wants to give her something. And he goes inside his house and he hands her, he comes out with holding a gun. And she takes like an involuntary step back when she sees this. And then he hands it to her and says, whoever you were afraid of, don't be afraid to use it. Like, find a range, practice, like go shoot. And I find this interesting because, like, we've seen Alana literally have sex with Hannibal, right? And we've seen Will describe, like, when he killed Randall, he used his fist because he described it as being more intimate. And as he's told Hannibal before, like, I wouldn't use a gun, I would use my bare hands because it is intimate. Right. So it's almost like he's like distancing intimacy between Alana and Hannibal as he's increasing it himself. Like, and I don't know. I don't know if that's meant to, or just like a happenstance thing, but like, I just kind of, when I was watching it, I was like, it's interesting. Like, he didn't give her a knife, right?
Yeah, he could have just given her a hunting knife. But I think you're absolutely right, because I think the gun in this moment, like the giving her of the gun, well, I mean, it's going to literally trigger something later, right? So it is literally Chekhov's gun, but there's something about that, because I'm just like, in this moment, I guess, no matter how resentful Will is towards Alana and the amount of anger that he's still holding on to. And rightfully so. Again, I don't think that I would be so quick to like forgive her for not believing me if I had been in Will's shoes in that moment, right?
Yeah.
Because not only is she siding with Hannibal, but she's also sleeping with him. Like when I oh my God, I'm really projecting here. When Will had like been so clear about his like affections or I can't remember how they call it, inclinations or romantic inclinations. Anyway, romantic overtures.
His intentions. Yeah.
His intentions. But I think it shows that he still cares about her and what happens to her. But at the same time, we also know that guns don't really work with Hannibal. So I don't know.
And I just want to point out while we're here that like all of the close-ups of Alana's face and this are just so incredible.
Yeah.
Like she is doing the most work. And it's just, it comes out beautiful. And we go from this scene to Hannibal's office where Mason has arrived for his first therapy session. Almost instantly, like when we first meet Mason, we kind of instantly hated him for his like insufferability, and it's multiplied by tenfold as he's in Hannibal's office. Hannibal's office being a place of civility and politeness and almost a rigidity of manners. And Mason just kind of discards all of that, and he kind of tosses his suit coat on a chair. Hannibal sits down in his usual chair across from an empty chair, and Mason just breezes past that and goes and lays down on the couch like a quote unquote like stereotypical therapy session. And Hannibal is obviously disturbed by this, right? Like he's like looking, like he looks over and like looks back at the chair, and is like, you can tell he just wants to eat this dude as fast as possible.
And that's the thing, like this whole moment is like feels so painful for Hannibal because he really has to hold himself back from like killing him like then and there. Because and like I'm even thinking back to like his patient Franklin. I don't think that he was that flustered with Franklin. Like I think this is the most flustered we've ever seen Hannibal.
Yeah, because Franklin was a little bit like this, like with the like putting the tissue on the table or whatever.
Yeah.
But also like Franklin was so pitiful.
Yeah.
And he was almost looking down at Franklin with scorn because he didn't believe that Franklin was like, you know, being a actual person standing up for himself versus Mason, who has an overabundance of confidence, right? So it becomes much worse. Mason begins to talk about camp, saying that his father had set up this program for 125 campers to like come through the barn and like, you know, experience farm life or whatever. And as his father died, he continued doing this. But he was, quote, a little rough with the children. But he was able to walk on the charges. Hannibal asked, like, you know, what was your punishment? And he had to do like community service and then had to go to, you know, court ordered therapy. But he says, Hannibal says, was that helpful? And Mason says, well, I got the doctor involved in something illegal. So, you know, I was able to, you know, get him to do what I wanted. And Hannibal just goes, that's not helpful.
He's got jokes, man. He's so funny. I love him. Like, again, why is this so funny?
Why is this so good?
Is it as if Hannibal's therapy was helpful in any way, shape, or form, right? Like,
yeah.
This is so good. This is so good. I love it.
Hannibal eventually calls Mason over. Is like, hey, come sit in the chair. And Mason continues talking about his father, about how good he was at reading people. And Hannibal says, like, you know, your father is dead. Like, you should focus on the living. Like, Margot is the only family that you have left. And Mason says that Margot has to love him. Otherwise, she's destitute. And he says, I am the sole verger heir. And Hannibal looks at him and says, unless biology provides another. And this is the moment that it clicks with Mason of like, I don't know why he didn't think that his sister couldn't get pregnant ever. Like, I don't know why this never occurred to him. Like, I feel like as soon as you read like my only living male heir, you think like, oh, where do babies come from? But like maybe he's just a Sam Winchester and he doesn't know what pregnancy is, like until this moment. Like he had to go look it up or something. I don't know.
But I mean, I think the fact that Margot is a lesbian also probably influenced that.
I didn't quite think about that, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
So he's like, well, the risk is greatly reduced from this, I suppose. And but Jeremy, Hannibal cannot help himself. Like, he literally just got out of the Chesapeake Ripper stuff, and there he is, like, entangling himself in a whole other murderous affair. Like, I think Like at this point, he's the architect of his own demise, right? Like it's like he can't transform into anything else than what he is because he doesn't want to. And he's so clear about that. But that's going to have repercussions eventually, right? Like he barely got off the charges for the Chesapeake Ripper, and now look at what he's doing.
It's, this is fundamental to Hannibal's character, right? So he's doing the exact same thing to Mason and to Margot that he's doing to Will. He's doing it much more dispassionately. Like this almost feels like kind of rote for him at this point of just like
clinical.
Yeah. Like this is more of the chaos gremlin of Hannibal, where he just wants to push buttons and see what's going to happen versus, with Will, there's something obviously totally different there. Right. But like in the books, and I think mostly in the books, it's implied that like this has happened so many times over the years, because in the books he's been in practice and psychiatric practice for I think literal decades, and like the more they dig into his past, the more that they realize like, oh, that you've been doing this forever. Like they just never linked up that it was Hannibal. So
does he ever take on like regular patients that he doesn't try to transform into killers?
Not in the books, none that I've remembered.
Not in the books. Yeah. How do people not realize this?
I mean, like I don't know what my psychiatrist does on the weekends. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know what she's up to. Like she could be doing some crazy shit with her other patients, and I just wouldn't know. Maybe I'm in a chrysalis and she's whispering some weird shit to me. I don't know. No, she's great. She's fine.
Right.
She's good.
Are you trying to convince yourself?
Yeah,
or?
Right. We move from this to a funeral. This was a winter funeral. We see, a group of black coated people with a pastor reading something out, and we look over and Alana is standing kind of apart from everybody else, and we realize this is Freddie Lowndes' funeral, and Will walks over, and she's uncomfortable in his presence. Like you can see that it's interesting that the way, like season 1, she was uncomfortable in his presence. Like it's pointed out very specifically that she was never alone with him, right? And that uncomfortableness has now transformed into a totally different type of being uncomfortable around somebody. And it's very present in their conversation here. As he points out, like there's a number of reasons I could be here. Like, maybe not just because I'm a killer. And she's just obviously very uncomfortable with this. And he says, I'm not here to dance on Freddie's grave. And she just kind of responds back like, you're also not here to find her killer, right? And then he says, I'm here because, and he kind of pauses with this significant pause, my psychiatrist suggested it would be therapeutic. And Alana's just like, nah, man, I'm out. I can't do any of this. If y'all crazy.
He is literally adding fuel to the fire here, right? Again, all this talk of fuel in this episode, like in making her think that he killed Freddie. And again, like watching this for the first time, you're like, Will, what are you doing?
Will, what is happening right now? Why are you giving so much away?
Yeah.
And let's go to maybe my favorite scene in this episode that we're going to talk quite a bit about.
I agree.
So we're going to go to Hannibal's office. It's interesting the way that they frame Hannibal and Will together, because like later they're going to be sitting across the chairs from each other. But here they're at like, a table sharing a drink. So it's almost like it's almost like code switching, where they go from therapist, patient to, murder friends. And this feels very much husbands. Like being murder husbands right now.
Yeah. Yeah, is it a date? Is it a therapy, or is it a therapy session, or is it a date?
This feels like a date, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And Will says he's been so consumed with the thoughts of taking a life that he's having trouble thinking about making one. Obviously referring to Margot's and his child. It's not that it's actually a child yet. It's just like, as Margot points out, like it's some cells in her urine, which I think is what she says.
Yeah. It's a clump of cells at this point.
And Hannibal points out that becoming a father can biologically change men as they become fathers. And Will says like the same thing can happen to killers. And Hannibal responds to this with, killers can become fathers, which is an outrageous statement, which is absolutely true. But like, you're just like, you just don't want to be true. Like you don't want that to
Hannibal. Stop it.
and Will asks, or I think Hannibal asked something about Will becoming attached to this child, and Will says that he's not.
Well, because Will goes like, because something clicks for Will in that moment when Hannibal says like killers can become fathers, and he's like, "Have you ever been a father?" Right?
Yes, and Hannibal says that he was never been a father. He was a father to his sister. She was not my child, but she was my charge. And he's very emotional as he talks about Misha. I've been wanting to tell you that her name was Misha since the very beginning of this podcast, but like it's just never,
Of course,
never been an opportunity. So yeah, Supernatural fans unite.
Super Honey Files.
Yeah, and it feels like for the first time, like we've seen Hannibal be a little vulnerable when it comes to Will. And we've talked about his human suit and like the veil that Bedelia has referred to, and how he lets Will look under that in a way that he doesn't let other people. And to me, this is maybe the first time that he's almost completely taking that veil off, right? Like it's the first time that he's being not only vulnerable but open at the same time. Like he talks about his sister, who obviously died. We don't get into the details. And then he says like, she reminded me of Abigail. Which is the first time like they've really spoken about Abigail since the end of season 1, where Hannibal presumably killed her and framed Will for it.
Presumably. The scene is very, very intense, like emotionally. For me, this is the highlight of the episode, personally. Like I think, because I think I've been waiting for this scene to happen since the beginning of season 2, and for it to happen so late into the season, I think like built up so much anticipation that I wasn't sure that I was going to like anything that was going to be said. And yet I absolutely love this scene so much. Like, and in so many ways, it sort of feels like this is the first time that they're just chatting, right? It feels like things are back to normal between them, quote unquote normal, of course, but like, we're seeing Hannibal opening up, like saying real and presumably meaningful things about himself, and talking about somebody that he seemed to very much have cared for and even loved, and to link that to Abigail, who is, you know, again, like who controversially, I think may still be alive, but like he's
very much dead. Like the show has shown you repeatedly that she's dead, but we'll get into that in a little while.
Sure. Whatever. Say the mean things. It's like, I don't know, like the fact that he also brings her up and he's finally ready to have that conversation with Will about her. Like, I think this is like as intimate as these two people can be in this moment, I think.
I do want to point out, when you say that they're just chatting, it kind of triggered something in my brain.
Right.
This is one of the first times that we see them having a conversation without layers of metaphor over what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Hannibal is very direct in this moment. Like we're not talking about, you know, breath and blood transforming into light or anything like that. Like he's just very direct and saying like, she reminded me of Abigail. Like he's, you know, this was, I had a sister. Like he's just saying things directly and honestly, which is new and different. And Will, you can tell this obviously affects Will when he brings up Abigail, and he just looks at Hannibal and like, in almost like brokenhearted kind of way says, why did you kill her? And Hannibal says that what happened to Abigail was necessary, was the only way. And Will says, you know, well, now it's the only way. Like now it's in the past. And then Hannibal does like kind of retreat back a little bit and says, you know, would you protect this unborn child the way that you couldn't protect Abigail? But Will is not deterred. He's not like kind of distracted by this. He says that he continues to talk about Abigail, saying that he dreams of her, of teaching her how to fish, which we've literally seen, right? Like we've literally seen his dreams, which is obviously continuing to happen. And we get a genuinely like emotional response from Hannibal when he hears this. And he says, literally, he actually apologizes, like, I'm sorry for taking that away from you. And Will just responds, I am too, as he's like literally crying.
I know. Honestly, this broke my heart in so many ways. Like to see, I mean, take away the murder aspect of it, right? Like it sort of feels like literally two parents talking about like the terrible things that one has done either to the child or to the other parent in the name of like resentment or whatever, like, and then being able to talk about it openly for the first time ever. Like, it's just, I don't know, there's something incredibly, again, removing the murder aspect of it, I think that there's something so relatable to that moment that I just, like, this one hit home for me.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in a way that I really was not expecting.
It's also notably, I've talked about this a lot about Will and Hannibal's conversation, that Hannibal doesn't ever actually admit to doing anything, right? Like, he's very, very hyper aware of what he's saying to Will and confirming, you know, what Will is saying. So like at the best, like if Will was recording these conversations, like they really couldn't get anything on Hannibal at this point. This is as close as Hannibal has ever gotten to admitting something, and even here he's pretty like, you know, what happened to Abigail was necessary.
What happened to Abigail was necessary. No, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah. Like it's still like
go.
It's still.
The question was, why did you kill her? And the answer was, what happened to Abigail was necessary. That's all I'm gonna say.
And then Hannibal begins to talk about a teacup. We are finally. You finally understand what I was been talking about fucking teacups for a year and a half now. But and he says that sometimes he occasionally drops a teacup and watches it shatter, and says, "I'm not satisfied when it doesn't gather itself up again. Someday, perhaps, a cup will come together." I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time. This is kind of one of my favorite little wrinkles in the Hannibal universe, I think. In the books, Hannibal has these thoughts. So this is taken directly from the books. And Hannibal takes this from a theory that Stephen Hawking had. And I'll put some links in the show notes so we can go deeper. But basically it was a theory about black holes and the fact that because of what we knew about physics, like black holes should never be able to increase. And we link that to entropy, and entropy, of course, being like the natural decay of things over time. And it's also linked to like disorder and chaos, right? So like the universe is constantly expanding and decaying and becoming chaos. And of course we see Hannibal kind of embracing this with his mindset around the world and with the way that he pushes people's buttons. But we never see in the world, we never see entropy decreasing. It always increasing. It always increases over time. And Hawking had this kind of wild theory that like as the universe was expanding, we would hit a point where it would stop expanding and then it would start retracting. And because of like the way that physics works, like how nothing can escape a black hole, how not even light can escape a black hole, so it could literally possibly bend time. And as the universe starts retracting, like time would go into reverse. So when he talks about the teacup coming together, he's talking about entropy reversing itself and time going into reverse. So all of this stuff that he has done and all of the things that have happened to him, maybe to Abigail or to Misha, would reverse themselves, right? Like it would come back together. That teacup would one day form itself up again. And as this is obviously I find it fascinating. It was also totally debunked, by the way. Like this is not a real thing at all. And interesting enough, like this was a kind of a weird, like kind of just offshoot, but like Stephen Hawking became relatively famous because of this theory, and it was later debunked. So it's like, you know, he's obviously was a brilliant scientist, but like it was a mistake that made him like as famous as he is, which I find kind of fascinating too.
That's so interesting. This is so hopeful of Hannibal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
I was about to talk about next. Absolutely. Yeah.
It just feels like this is the closest to faith that we have seen of him, right? Like, because he doesn't hide from God or whatever. The way that he talks about God is just kind of like so...
it's almost like he puts himself on the same level as God, right? Like he doesn't deify a literal deity. So
yeah, exactly. Like it's so anti-Abrahamic in so many ways, right? Like and to think that he thinks or maybe hopes or believes that one day, you know, the teacup will come together again, I think is the biggest show of faith that we have seen from this character before. And if you've listened to Carrying Wayward, you know how fascinated I am with that idea of like faith and characters showing faith in different ways. And oh man, this is so good.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting too because in the books, Hannibal still like toys with this idea and in a way believes it, even though in the books it's already been debunked. Like Hannibal has to acknowledge that like this was disproven using math and physics. And I find it interesting that you use the word faith because like he's still believing, right? Like he's still believing without the evidence, which of course
but
is
that's what faith is,
exactly
right?
exactly
it's
what faith
wanting
is.
to believe, right? Like you're watching the X-Files, you know what I'm talking about,
exactly,
like,
100%.
and that's one thing that like that is talked about in the X-Files, but that actually believing or proving is very different from like wanting to believe.
Yes.
And this is Hannibal wanting to believe. And that is the purest form of faith, in my opinion.
I also want to point out, I was reading through the script last night, and as I got to a scene that's going to be come up in the later with Alana and Hannibal, it made me realize that like Will's empathic journeys into the mind of serial killers also work kind of this way, right? He reverses time and then pushes it forward again.
Oh, holy shit!
Yeah, and it had never occurred to me until literally last night, as I was reading, and I was like,
the pendulum.
Like he's literally like Will's brain is literally putting the teacup back together every time that he, encounters something like this, encounters something grisly. And I wonder if like Hannibal's realization at Will, like his attraction to Will is like that ability to do that in his mind, right? That ability to put the teacup back together again. And that
just blew my mind.
And I don't. It's difficult to know. I always talk about this. Like everybody on the team of Hannibal seemed incredibly smart to me. Like I no idea how a show like this gets made. And it's difficult always to know what's accidental or what's on purpose. But it feels like
in this case, it doesn't matter.
I
don't care.
It doesn't matter, but like also like they could have gone any number of directions with Will's empathy, like the way that because this was all invented. Like in the books, he's just really, really fucking good, right? Like he's in many scenes we just see him like in a pile of evidence, like in a hotel room, drinking 2 fingers of scotch as he's got like papers all around him as he's trying to figure something out. Here, it's much more like magical realism, and they could have gone a number of ways. And I wonder how much that was impacted with their knowledge that Hannibal like believes in this, or wants to believe in this reverse entropy thing. Finally we get to talk about the teacup scene.
Oh, that was really good. I really liked this.
Didn't realize that when I started a Hannibal podcast, I'd be talking about Stephen Hawking and black holes, but here we are.
And thermodynamics. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Here we are. And faith and God.
Right. You had no idea what you were getting into. You're like, oh, it's going to be a fun TV show. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, a little murder podcast. It'll be fun.
Sure. Yeah.
25 episodes in. So the laws of thermodynamics. Unbelievable.
We actually see a teacup reassembling itself too. Like we should know.
Yes.
Like we see like a scene of that. Which we of course used for at the opening of our very cool video where we covered Casual by Chapel Roan. So everybody go check that out.
Please go check it out. It's so good.
It's
so good.
I'm building my confidence meter up. And let's say that my confidence meter is a 10 and I'm about at a 6.5 right now of just adding Brian Fuller with the video link and being like, hey, do you like Chapel Roan? Because I think Brian Fuller would like actually click on that and be like, oh yes, I do in fact enjoy this. Like,
do you like Chapel Roan and Hanny Graham?
Yeah,
like I think that's how you get him. And do it on Blue Sky, because like Blue Sky,
he's all over.
Like he's
Blue
actually
Sky. Yeah.
he's there.
Yeah. And I think I could actually, and I don't even care about him like retweeting it or anything like that. I don't give a shit about any of that or reposting it or whatever. And I don't care about that. Like I'm not trying to get people. I want people to see the video, but like that wouldn't be the point. I just want him to experience it. So,
same. Honestly, I'm like, please see this. It's so good.
We fade out from here, and we fade into a very grisly scene. We're back at the cemetery that Alana and Will were at, and now I don't think we knew this. Like the show doesn't specifically say it, but like this is. Like instantly, this is Freddy's body, right? Like you just know. We kind of get the impression that this was freshly dug up from the grave, and of course the ERT folks are here, and Z and Price confirm like that the body wasn't even the ground, 24 hours, which was 48 hours faster than Jesus. I think one of them joke. And Freddy's body has
Yeah.
been posed in the form of the Shiva, the Buddhist god, and Hindu. Sorry, excuse me. Thank you.
Sorry, no.
No. You're good. I appreciate the correction. And other body parts have been scavenged from the cemetery in order to complete this grisly like tableau. Will is already there. Alana arrives, and she just like stares at Will as her and Jack arrive together. And Jack is like, the killer's trying to get someone's attention. And Alana starts doing the profiling that we would normally see Will or Hannibal do. She says that the killer's chaos is getting more organized. And she connects this murder of Freddie Lowndes and says whoever killed Freddie Lowndes killed Randall. And the only connection there is Will Graham. And I find this fascinating because like this is literally what Will was doing with Hannibal in season 1 and nobody believed him. And now like exactly what he said earlier to Alana was like, if you tell people I'm the killer, no one will believe you. Like Jack is like, there's a connection? What are you talking about?
Yeah. But it's also like there is another connection, and that's Hannibal.
Hannibal,
she refuses
right?
to see that.
Yeah.
Right? And she refuses to see that. That is just not something that her consciousness will allow in this moment.
And she says this psychopath was incubating fantasies about killing, and he's building himself up, or someone else is building him up.
Oh, no.
And Will says, oh, you're thinking that the killer has a benefactor. Shiva is both a destroyer and a benefactor. And this makes something in Alana's brain clicks. And she realizes, oh, it wasn't Freddy's killer that did this. It's his benefactor. And she's horrified. You can see in her brain as she's trying to connect the dots, she realizes that this could possibly be Hannibal. Like that Will was, that she realizes like Will was right about Hannibal and she's right about Will at the same time.
Yeah.
And so she connects the dots that like Hannibal did this, and it just pops out of her mouth. It's a courtship. And she's so horrified and taken aback by this.
And what you just said is literally what Freddie Lowndes had told her a few days before her death.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I didn't even think
That
about
Will
that.
Graham-
Absolutely.
Right. Will Graham was right about Hannibal Lecter, and I was right about Will Graham. And Alana is realizing that too, probably, and that exchange with Freddie. Because remember, I was like, I don't understand what Freddie's doing, but now I get it. Now I'm like, oh, yes, okay, that's what she was doing. She's literally building Alana up to believe that Will is going to kill her, is going to be the killer, whatever. And I feel so bad for her, honestly. I feel really bad for Alana in this moment because, like, she really does believe that Will killed Randall and Freddie. Like, and again, like, in that moment, that's what we're supposed to believe as well. We are supposed to believe that Will killed Randall and Freddie. And she is completely correct about making that link in her mind, right? About connecting those dots. And who else would be the benefactor but Hannibal, right? And in this moment, she's realizing that, like, this mentor, this man that she's looked up to her entire career, who she's now intimate with, is actually a serial killer and is in love with somebody else. Like, that's gotta hurt. Like, I don't know which part is most painful, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and the fact that she, not only her relationship with Hannibal, but her relationship with Will, who she was also attracted to, and she also had this professional relationship with, and like also realizing that, if Will was right, that means that Hannibal was the Chesapeake Killer, which means like my entire world has just been changed. Like all of these things that we believe that the FBI was doing are now completely changed. And it's got to be just a like mind blown situation, right? Like the first time you were like 16 and saw The Matrix, you were like, "Oh, the world is fake. Like we're living in a machine." All that kind of stuff. So,
but that's the thing, because in this moment, it's both her professional and her personal life that are crumbling. Right?
Absolutely.
Like there's no. It's not like she can just like sit back and be like, "Oh, at least like I feel good in my personal life, or at least my professional life is going well." Both aspects of her life, and we don't really know that she has like another like hobby aspect. You know what I mean? Like we don't really know much about Alana apart from like her relationships and her work. And right now, both of these aspects of her life are crumbling before her eyes, like in a way that is so dramatic and horrifying that like very few of us can actually like relate to.
Absolutely. And we move from here to Muskrat Farms. Where Margot is, putting up one of her horses when Mason approaches her. And he's just so sleazy and awful and oily, and he compliments her bloom, and he starts talking about breeding stock and how he's worried about the future generation of vergers. She says, "I'm just trying to survive this one," which is very funny. He talks about how their father gave him a real education, taking him out of school for weeks at a time, and so they would go to like pig farms and livestock shows and things like that. And he wants to pass that education on. He says he wants a baby, a son of his own. He talks about how his sperm is viable, which is pretty gross. And says that I think a child is maybe what we need to bring us together. And Margot is like, she kind of does that like aloofness thing of like, maybe it is. And as she turns around, he grabs her hair, and again, like refers to her bloom, saying, "What is your secret?" And as he leaves, of course, Margot is scared. The viable sperm thing is a reference to something that's in the books. Because you asked me if like this will pregnancy thing is in the books, and it's not. But like Margot in the books, wants Mason to donate his sperm to her partner, so that they can have a verger baby. And Mason obviously is refusing. So. Yeah. It's kind of one of those,
Okay.
kind of one of those weird situations where you're like, I get it, but also like Mason is a scumbag, so like why, that kind of thing.
Okay. Well, okay, that explains a lot, because I honestly like. So again, I talk a lot about like sexual danger on this podcast and how like I don't feel it from Hannibal, but I felt it in that moment, because I was like, there is really a world out there in which Mason is actually talking about raping his sister in this moment.
Yes.
Like I like it gives off that kind of vibe, like the way that he grabs her ponytail, the fact that she doesn't say anything or even try to like fight him back means that like this is very mild, like that he's done other things to her. And he's a depraved scumbag. And so like, it's just not outside the realm of possibility. And I honestly, I hate everything about this. Everything about this.
I want to talk about this. I'm going to linger on this for just a minute, because I was watching Andor recently, which is like a grisly, realistic kind of view into the Star Wars universe. And there's a moment where a female prisoner is grabbed by a male and taken to a different room, and we see him like push her to her room and goes in behind her and then closes the door. And like instantly, like in my mind, I was like, oh, he's going to sexually assault her. Like he's going to use her like in this kind of way. And then like, it's a Star Wars show. So like they cut inside and he's just interrogating her or whatever. But like the writers knew what they were doing. And one of the things that you liked about this show, and that I know some of our listeners liked about the show as they began to watch it, was that lack of sexual violence towards women. The fact that we could see this stuff without encountering that. And I don't care about how realistic, quote unquote, you want to make your show, or like how based on real life you want to make your show or anything like that. Like using the implication of sexual assault or violence towards women as a way to, shock your audience or whatever, I think is so cheap and easy, that it really kind of pisses me off. And like with Hannibal, they're drawing for some source material, but they ain't gotta, right? Like there's so much about the show that's pulled from the source material that is remixed it, that it doesn't. It's just such a low point in the show for me, like this whole plot line, because it's like they just didn't have to. Like they could have just skipped this and been probably better for it. Like it's just
right.
Yeah, I don't know. Like,
so I'm actually going to make a point later that I think that this is all done specifically to say something about Mason, but also to say something about the patriarchy and patriarchal institutions. And I think I'm giving the show a lot of goodwill just because of everything that I've seen from it. I wouldn't give this kind of goodwill to like Supernatural, for example, or sorry, Chris Carter, but probably not the X-Files either.
Sure.
But like I definitely give Hannibal this kind of goodwill. We'll see, because I'm like, okay, you know what, you want to make that point, and I think that they really bring it home later on in this episode.
Yeah, and we'll save some of that talk for that scene, because I think it's going to be necessary to get into just a little bit. We cut from here to Hannibal and Will, who are now in their therapy chairs. So this is not a date.
Therapy.
And Hannibal talks about how how every creative art has destructive parts, and that what you are today has laid waste to give. Who you are yesterday is laid waste to give rouse to who you are today. And we've talked about like transformation. We've talked about like grief, things like that. He's literally talking about like Will destroying his past to become his future. And Will questions him like, how many lives have to be sanctified in this process? And Hannibal just says, as many as were necessary.
Necessary.
And Will says, you sacrificed Abigail, and you cared about Abigail probably as much as I do. And Hannibal says maybe more, but you sacrificed her anyway. And Hannibal kind of flips this and says, how much has God sacrificed?
And I'm like, who cares about God, Hannibal? Like, why are you bringing God into this?
Because he doesn't.
I feel like God would very much like to be excluded from this conversation.
Because he doesn't want to talk about Hannibal, or Abigail.
Oh,
yeah.
Right. Of course, he doesn't want to talk about Abigail. But I and also like in this moment, like the cinematography is so interesting because like Will and Hannibal kind of change spots. Like it's as if Will is Hannibal and Hannibal is Will for a second, and I like. Ooh, and I again, like, I think there's this implication that one is becoming more like the other, like in the last episode, there was like their faces being superimposed. And I find that really interesting because I'm seeing a lot of what Will is quote unquote taking in from Hannibal, but I haven't seen that much of what Hannibal is taking in from Will. And so I'm kind of interested to see what that is going to be.
How they're changing one another, right? How they're transforming
exactly.
each other. Yeah.
Right. Well, because I'm seeing the transformation in Will, but I have yet to see the transformation in Hannibal.
But we kind of are, right? Like we're seeing Hannibal open up to him in a way that we've never seen him open up to anybody, even someone that he is physically intimate with Alana. Like there's still that human veil there. And we're finally seeing him, show Will his real side. Hannibal says he doesn't pray to a god, that he just compares his own actions to, his own, I think he says his own puny actions or his own, minor actions or something. He uses a diminutive of some sort, to what God has done. And Will says, he prayed to see Abigail again. And Hannibal makes a sick joke, like, your prayers weren't unanswered. You saw part of her.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, exactly. Like, horrible.
Hannibal.
And then he, kind of refers back to the teacups. Should the universe contract, should time reverse and teacups come together, a place for Abigail could be made in your life. And he says that, you lost a child and now it looks like you're going to gain one. And as this happens, this scene, as Hannibal talks, we see antlers, the shadow of antlers, like moving across the wall behind him. And then the camera pulls out and we see the two of them in the chairs sitting across from one another. And in the middle is this form that we have not seen before of this black figured, like muscled image of the Shiva, but with antlers, right? Like it's an abomination of a creature, of abomination of a god. And it's sitting there between them.
It's a transformation of the antler demon, right?
Like into a god, again. Maybe even like they're. And they both. The thing that I find fascinating is that they both look over. Like this is like obviously a
shared delusion.
It's a shared. Yeah, it's a shared thought. It's a shared feeling. Even if this is like mystical realism. Like I don't think that they are literally looking at this together, but I think that they are experiencing the sensation together, and that the show is showing that through this metaphorical lens. And I mean, how great is Hannibal?
It's such a good show. I mean, listen, I'm looking at my time here and we are at 1 hour, 48 minutes into this recording and we are on page 6 of 8.
Yeah, full pages.
6 of 8. We still have 2 full pages to go. How is this possible? Okay. Is it controversial theory time?
Get after it. I don't,
okay.
I'm ready for you to make the entire Hannibal fandom, incredibly mad. So let's just do it.
Excellent. Wonderful. So I've been thinking about this literally all week. And with the reveal that comes at the end of this episode that Freddy is actually still alive, that is literally 3 characters that I assumed were dead who weren't actually dead. Namely, Gideon, after Will shot him, Miriam, after Hannibal abducted her, and now Freddy. So I have to say that I'm kind of starting to distrust the show when it tells me something without showing it to me. And I even kind of DM'd you, like, who else is still alive? Like Chilton, Abigail. And I kind of said it in jest, but it's been on my mind all week since last Sunday now. And I think I'm ready to come out and say that I think Abigail might still be alive. Because why else would Hannibal be giving Will these kinds of hopes about like a place for Abigail could be made in his life, right? And like, sure, it could be like just to be cruel, right? Because we've seen Hannibal do that. But I'm starting to think that maybe he gave her the Miriam treatment. Like he took an arm from Miriam. He can easily take an ear from Abigail. And I think this is also a way, this is also a way, okay? You can laugh at me when I'm done.
I'm not laughing at you, I promise. I'm not laughing at you. Just, yeah.
I think that this is also, because we've been talking a lot about faith, right? About Hannibal's faith in one day time turning back. I think maybe this is a way to develop Will's faith in him as his God kind of thing, right? Like, because that's how Hannibal thinks. He compares himself to God and like, I am blah, blah, blah. God and I were like homies. But like, this is kind of like, because imagine what it would feel like to give Abigail back to Will, right? The same way that he gave Miriam back to Jack. Like, oh my God. Okay. I am ready for people to laugh. Go. It's all good.
No, I'm just, I just want to say that I'm standing in solidarity with the rest of our listeners, and that's pretty much all that I'm going to comment.
I'm so annoying
on this because I can't.
But you know what's really funny about this is that there's someone in the Discord who's been saying this for a while, and they haven't seen the show either. Mm-hmm. And because they're a little bit behind, because they're watching as we're releasing episodes, and I have to apologize because when they started saying, well, I think Abigail might still be alive, in my mind, and I never said this, but I was acting all smug in my head. I was like, I have seen ahead. I know she's dead. Now I'm like, you know what? They might be onto something. Like, they might be onto something.
Shout out to Wizard Nut Grinder in our Discord.
Yes, exactly.
Merlin and X-Files fanfic writer, crossover fanfiction writer. And
I have to apologize formally for my imaginary smugness to you, so I apologize. I think you might be right. We'll see.
They'll accept that apology in several months, and we'll see what happens.
Yes, exactly.
We go from here to Mason telling Hannibal about what I kind of told you at the end of the last episode that I forgot was in this, how his father would like secret a knife in his hand and stick pigs to check the level of fat. And he cackles as he remembers like his father doing this to pigs who were otherwise like swaddled and taken care of. And, you know, I think he said bathed in milk and you know, dusted with baby powder, because like show pigs are like members of people's family in a lot of ways. Like they're treated that way. And Hannibal points out like happiness is part of what you look for in a show pig. And Mason, I think, rightfully points out like if we truly considered the pig's happiness, we wouldn't eat them. And he says that his father taught him, you know, how to stick the knife in just enough to check the fat, which is what he's been doing with Margot. But now he's realized that Margot has found a loophole in their father's will, and knows that if she's not already pregnant, she will be soon. And Hannibal is like, well, you know, that would be an heir to you as well. Like that's a member of your family. And he says, only if I die, meaning like this child won't become the heir unless he is out of the picture somehow.
But Mason, that's any heir.
That's
he's
how
such
this
a
works.
dumbass. Oh, I hate him.
Hannibal and
I'm so done. I'm done.
You're done with Mason.
Yeah.
Hannibal and Alana are in his office, and they're drinking wine together, which I find interesting because normally she's a beer drinker, right? But she's obviously distressed, and she says she's having a lot of pressure to believe something that is making her paranoid. That Will is like not Will. That the presence of Will, that Will's actions are pressuring her to believe something, and it's making her paranoid. And Hannibal is like, "We will never be alone, will we? He will always be in the room." And like, yeah, dude, this is a throuple if I've ever seen one.
I'm like, my guy, you're the one keeping him in the room,
right?
Like, let's be real.
And Alana says, like, you know, how do you think Will's progress is going? And Hannibal, of course, says he's getting better. And Alana's like, he doesn't seem to be getting better. And he just says, are you questioning my therapy? In kind of a playful tone. And Alana's like, she's kind of like, again, she's distressed and paranoid because I've been questioning everything, and it makes me feel empty, like I've given blood. And he says, you've given more than blood, as he takes her hand and like begins to kiss it. And then he realizes with his super sense of smell that he can smell the gunpowder on her hand. And I just want to point out that it would be very easy for them to show like her shooting at a range or whatever, but instead we get a close up of a bullet reversing itself into the gun. So now like we have a direct comparison between Hannibal's like ability to like smell things and interpret those smells to Will's empathic ability to be able to see things and interpret what they mean and go in reverse, right? And I just kind of find that fascinating. So not to
Oh my god!
not to belabor the point or anything. So.
No. But that's I did not see that actually. So thank you for pointing it out. I need to understand if Will knows about his superhuman smell.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's because it's not clear to me. Like it's not, because it's never discussed. It's never brought up. But the thing is, if he does, okay, then it means that he gave that gun to Alana knowing that he would smell the gunpowder residue on her.
That's such an interesting theory that I'd never thought about not a single time.
But that's why I'm like, does he know? And I don't know that there's anything in the actual text, like in the actual show, that confirms or denies that.
I don't know either, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know if because Will has obviously been smelled by Hannibal, and he knows that. There was when Hannibal and the neurosurgeon guy were looking at the results of Will scans, the neurosurgeon guy kind of makes a joke about like using his party trick to tell a woman's the nurse's perfume. So like, obviously, like, it's not something that he hid. It's something that he used to impress people at one point in his life. But like, whether or not that's translated into Will knowing about it, like I have no idea. But I'm fascinated by the idea of Will literally planning this to kind of create distance between. Again, I told you, I kind of said at the beginning, like when he handed her this gun, that he was creating like a distance of intimacy between her and him. And I didn't really think that was literal, right? Like I thought that was more, but no, this is a literal way, like to have have Hannibal pull away from her because he knows he's got a gun.
Again, like, especially with your point that they're like paralleling those two things, like the Will's empathic ability and Hannibal's like smelling ability, olfactory ability, like it's like, oh, Will did this in response, like he planned this in order for us to be able to see it in reverse. Like I don't know, I kind of love that.
Yeah,
I think that there's
if it's not for real, we're gonna headcanon it, right? Like this is my headcanon.
Yeah, exactly.
So we switch to Margot, who is packing up in the middle of the night, having kind of figured out that Mason knows what she's up to, sneaking out of Muskrat Farms. And she's wearing a little spy hat, which is very cute. It's like she got dressed up for the occasion.
I didn't even notice, honestly, what she was wearing.
Yeah. But none of that matters, because very quickly as she gets in the car and drives down the road, she is rammed by Carlos, who is in a large truck. And as we see her framed in the door of her crumpled vehicle, she's terrified as she looks up and sees Carlos. And she wakes up in a surgical theater, paralyzed. She can't move. And Mason is looming over her in bright red scrubs, saying, I have to remove this temptation. And this whole scene this leaves such a bad taste in my mouth. And it did in the books too. Like, I don't like, this is it's just awful. I don't, this is, I don't know what it is. You know how you worry about medical gatekeeping or medical gaslighting? I mean, like, I don't know, I don't know. This is such I don't know why this, I mean, I know why this bothers me so much. I think it makes sense. But like at the same time, like this bothers me so much more than almost anything else that's happened in the show. Like this involuntary surgery, this like forced sterilization thing. It's horrifying and I hate it.
Yeah. I mean, well, thank you for saying that, because that, that's reassuring, I suppose. But like, you mentioned the bright red scrubs, and I'm going to start there because I think that was definitely a choice, right? Like trademark, because generally, when you're going into surgery, you don't want your patients thinking that your clothes look like they're covered in blood, right? Like that's generally bad. So those scrubs don't, like, I've never seen them out in hospitals or clinics before, right? Like I've seen Bordeaux ones, but not those bright red ones. And so I started thinking about like bright red uniforms. And the one thing that came up to my mind, especially with the topic that we're dealing with here, is The Handmaid's Tale, right? And that novel predominantly deals with the loss of bodily autonomy and particularly reproductive autonomy of women, right? In that universe. I think that the goal of making Mason do that is to wrap him up in a really destructive kind of patriarchy where his sister is a threat to him until she is forcibly sterilized, right? Like that women are a threat to man for the reproductive choices that they can make, right? And I think, I mean, I would argue that the show kind of made that point by having Margot lie to Will about like her, you know, contraceptive status, right? It shows that women are actually like out there to get pregnant from poor unsuspecting men.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which, you know, is the thing that like I was like, I need you to tell me if she is actually going to get pregnant, because that is like a huge, I hate that, right? Hate that so much. And so we're talking about forcible sterilization here, and it is an abomination. And so is forced pregnancy, right? And in today's world, and in the world of The Handmaid's Tale, which we're clearly visually referencing here, I think it's really important to kind of say that out loud, that both forcible sterilization and forcible pregnancy are very dangerous ways in which individuals and institutions are asserting their power, you know, primarily over women, but also anybody with a uterus, right? And so I think that there's a meaning to be made out of this that is not just like shock value, I think, anyway. So I'm willing to approach it with a critical eye rather than just like a dismissing eye of like, oh, whatever, this is just senseless violence against women. Like, I don't think it is violence against women, but I do believe that there is a point behind it. And so I'm much more willing to engage properly with it rather than just be like, yeah, this is just fucking awful and I don't really care about it, because I think there's a point to it.
There is another point to it. And I guess first off, let me just agree with everything that you said and give it a resounding like +1, right? Like you said everything perfectly. I don't need to kind of repeat anything that you said, but I think you nailed it. Like, I think that is absolutely the case. It's also just, I think living in 2025, like we're recording this on March 2nd, and just like the real world stuff, the way that these things are happening with more and more legislation being aimed at uterus having people and the control over their body, and that kind of thing is just, it's terrifying in the show, right? And that's fictional. And then, you know, you open up, you know, CNN and you see it happening in the real world as well. And you're just, it's just terrifying.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing. Like, I don't think this show was this part of the show was done in 2014, and it still highlighted that this was a danger, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And yet this was a time when those abortion rights were still pretty like holding strong. And again, yet, like, I think the point of this is to say that you're always in danger of this kind of oppression, right? No matter what rights you have, because people who hate you they don't give a fucking shit about your rights, right?
And, you know, I think like Roe versus Wade had been around, but like in the scope of like our laws was still relatively new, right? And then if you think about like LGBTQ rights, and the ability to get married to a partner of the same sex as you, like all of that was, I'm pretty sure that happened in 2014, right? Like that was relatively new.
I think we talked about it.
Yeah.
It was voted in 2014 then took effect in 2015.
Yeah,
or something.
So like
it was very, very new.
So if through that lens, like even though like some of this stuff had been, you know, ratified and approved, like it was still very much a a topic, like a thing that people were battling in real life on both sides. And yeah, I just
Roe v. Wade is 1973 because I looked it up.
Yeah. So it's,
because we have a different history about that in Canada. But yeah, Roe v. Wade was 73, and then it got reaffirmed also in 1992 through another case, through Planned Parenthood. Yes.
But
that
like,
abortion was a right.
But throughout that entire time, like it's been fought against, right? Like it's been continually fought against. So that's the
yeah, absolutely.
But also the other point that I think this is of this whole thing is to make Mason despicable as possible, and without spoiling anything. Like I think there's a reason that they're showing us how despicable he can be. And so
right, and I do want to make another point that misogyny is also the foundation for homophobia, right? Like, that's a whole other podcast to have, but like, when you hate women the way that Mason hates women, you also hate gay people. And we've seen him make homophobic, lesbophobic comments on the show before, right? And so I do want to link those two things together, and how Hannibal kind of considers that to be rude.
Yes.
And so again, we're making a point about Mason's character as like both an individual but also an institution, given like the amount of power that he has to just like summon a group of surgeons to be able to do an illegal surgery. So anyway, I don't know. Again, like, you know how I feel about gratuitous violence against women, but
yes.
I don't know that this was gratuitous, right?
Like I go back to my thing against, like, you know, they're obviously adapting storylines from the books. They
didn't have to.
They ain't gotta. Like, I think that's what I always come down to. Like, and you know, people defend, you know, Game of Thrones is a great example of showing sexual violence against women, and you know, and when people would complain about that.
But that's not to make a point, though.
Yeah,
right? Like, they're not
obviously,
making the point that this show is, I think, trying to make. And I think that to me, anyway, as a viewer, that's the difference. That's why I don't care, or I don't engage with the sexual violence on Game of Thrones the same way, because I know it's just for shock value. And at that point, I have nothing to say. Like, if you think that this is entertaining, then good for you. I don't.
I just saw so many people like defend that as like, well, that's what really was happening. Like, well, was there really fucking dragons?
With the dragons?
Yeah, like, I mean, like, you can again, like, I'll come back to my thesis statement of you ain't gotta, right? Like, and
for sure,
and
for sure.
Yeah, I do agree with you that this is not pointless. I do find it gratuitous, to be honest with you. Like, I find it I guess it doesn't linger. Yeah. But like, also at the same time, like, and it's not like a slasher film, right? Like, this is more implied, like everything happening off screen, which is somehow even more terrifying because your imagination can take it for you. And so maybe you're right. Maybe it's not gratuitous. Maybe you're changing my mind on this a little bit, but still.
I don't know. I mean, I think, like you said, they don't gotta. Right? They didn't have to go into that.
Gotta,
I think there was a lot of other ways to make Mason seem really despicable.
Also, to set up somebody that we hate more than Hannibal, I think it was probably fairly important too. Like, because of the relationship between Will and Hannibal. And if you remember everything about the show, you're like, well, Hannibal is fucking horrible. Here's somebody that's even worse, and now Hannibal looks good in reflection, right? So.
Because like, say what you will about Hannibal, like, he doesn't, like, you know,
I can excuse
he doesn't
cannibalism.
do racisms or misogynies, you know, like, he just.
I can excuse cannibalism, but
he does. He actively practices cannibalism, but he definitely draws the line at racism.
We move from here to Alana in Jack's office, saying that she's had kind of a terrible realization, and she begins to question what he's up to. And Jack starts out by playing dumb, and Alana is like kind of dismissive of all of this. She knows that they're lying. She says that they're all lying, and she's saying like,
Alana is losing her shit,
absolutely,
like Will Graham style. Yeah.
And she's like, what do you believe? Like, what do you? You know, do you believe that Chilton was a Chesapeake River? And as he starts like, well, there was overwhelming evidence. She cuts him off like, stop, don't, you know, you're lying, stop lying. And he asks her what she believes. And she says, I have no confidence. I know Hannibal Lecter anymore. You don't know Will. You're going to lose Jack if you haven't lost already.
That's exactly what Will said, by the way, when he said, I don't know that I know who you are anymore. And I was like, Alana, you're here, Yes.
like seeing a miniature version of Will in season 1, like in 2 or 3 episodes of Alana, is kind of interesting to me.
Yeah.
And Jack just says like, "Hey, follow me. I want to show you something." And he leads her to a conference room. As they walk in, who is there but standing up but Freddie Lowndes, alive, healthy, and asking how her funeral was, just like Freddie would.
Jesus Christ.
And surprise, we've obviously talked about it throughout this episode of the podcast, but like, what a shock when you see her.
It's honestly like, yeah, that is such a magnificent reveal. I was so convinced that Will had killed her, and to see her again, like in full cahoots with Jack. Oh my God, it just changed so much about my approach to Will, because this means that like Will is a lot more in control than I originally thought. And people kept saying like, oh, Will is so in control in season 2. And I was just like, I don't know if he's I don't know if I would call that in control. And now I'm like, holy shit. Like there's, again, people say that there's no equivalent of watching Hannibal for the first time, and I'm starting to understand it. I'm just like, oh my God, like, yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Take a shot every time I say it's so good, guys. You will be so drunk by the end of this episode.
We talked last week. I actually specifically asked you like if you thought that Will was operating on his own with all of this, or if he was in cahoots with Jack. And I, knowing full well what the answer actually was. And I think it's super interesting, like, as you were kind of nearing the conclusion that he had to be working with Jack in some way, but like also trying to figure out like how he could be doing this horrible things with Jack's permission. And like, oh yeah, here it is. And I think like, I don't know how far the show, I don't remember some of the details of the next 2 episodes. But I think this like puts a lot of things in relief, right? Like, number one, where did they get that body that they burned? Whose body is that? Like, how is the FBI allowing this to happen? Like, it almost feels like now I'm not asking, is Will operating under the guidelines of the law? I'm asking if Jack is, right? Like, how far is Jack willing to go to allow Will to go in order to capture this serial killer? And then, like, we saw, did he actually kill Randall? What does Jack think about that? Like, they're obviously storing his animal suit in evidence for, like, quote unquote, in Will's shed.
Maybe Randall's not dead either.
Randall's not dead either.
Oh my God!
But his fucking corpse was on Hannibal's table. So, like, I mean, at the same time,
yeah,
like,
no, I would assume that he's pretty dead.
But I imagine,
we did
like,
see him.
Yeah, we saw him dead. Like, and I imagine
we saw him dead. Like
the. I don't remember the name of the woman, like the FBI investigator woman, Cynthia Nixon played. But like, I'm sure she doesn't probably want Jack to be like, oh yeah, we gave a dead body to Hannibal, right? Like, that's just like, you can't. That's not law enforcement. Like, that's not how we do things.
No, no, not at all.
So I find it fascinating. Like,
again, like,
how much
the FBI does not know how to FBI, and Walter Skinner would be very, very upset about all this.
How many episodes ago did we see the show explicitly tell us that Will and Jack were going to work together, right? Like, we saw them. Oh my God! We saw them fishing, and Jack literally said, like, you bait the hook, you get him on the hook, I'll reel him in, and like explicitly telling us that. And then like throughout this entire season since then, like we question what Will is doing because he's so good at this, and like the way the show portrays it, you're like, and even still, like, even knowing this, you're like, I still think that Will is being seduced by Hannibal, and it still has this like aspect of his personality that's coming out. I don't think any of that is fake. But it's not
mutually exclusive.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't think it's mutually exclusive. Like I mean, I don't know. I don't know the reality of this, but like there are so many movies of like double agents, right? Or like people who go undercover who end up like, and I mean, I think in order to be really undercover or whatever to be a double agent or whatever, you have to somehow at least convince yourself that you at least a little bit believe what you're saying, right? And I think that like you're just tapping into aspects of your personality that you wouldn't necessarily actively choose to. And I think that that's what's happening with Will. And I think that the feelings that he has towards Hannibal, like that's something that he wouldn't necessarily have tapped into before, but he's kind of been forced to. And now he's like, oh shit, like this is actually awakening something. Like,
this is a transformation, right? Like that's
this is
if you want a really good show that plays with that spy motif about like
Yes.
kind of becoming,
I love that, actually.
quote unquote, going native. The Americans is really, really great. I think that's Kerry Washington. I might be getting the name wrong. I don't remember, but she's amazing.
I love Kerry Washington.
And the show is just, and I think it's finished. Like, I think they actually wrote a conclusion to it. It didn't just get canceled or anything.
Okay.
So like it's, and knowing you'll be finished with it by the time we record next week. So it's not going to take a lot of time.
Excellent. Well, there's Daredevil this week, so I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's true. We only get 2 episodes though. It's not like Netflix style. Like they're going to be
No, but
dripping
I'm
this
going to
out.
rewatch the past
Gotcha,
seasons, and then
gotcha.
if I do
Yeah,
that,
there
then
you
I
go.
have to rewatch The Defenders, and if I have to do that, then I'll rewatch Jessica Jones.
Yeah.
And then if I have to do that,
And then you'll highlight Iron Fist and go, no, not even this. And that's not worth it. Not even going to bother.
no, I won't do Iron Fist.
The second season of Iron Fist. It features Jessica.
Apparently, the second season was good.
I wouldn't go so far as to say good. The focus is taken away from Danny Rand quite a bit, and it's put on Jessica Hemwick, who is just a brilliant actor. She was in like one of the Matrix movies, and she does a lot of like kung fu stuff. She's amazing. So the focus on her makes it way more interesting because you get away from the horribleness that is the Night of Flowers guy playing Danny Rand.
I genuinely think that this is one of the very few series that I started and never finished.
I wouldn't blame you. Iron Fist season 1 is fucking horrible. Like, it is not a good show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I watched a few episodes and I was like, because usually even if I hate a show, I'll finish it just because I'm a completionist. But like, I think this was one of them where I watched the first few and I was like, I cannot do this.
Yeah, that dude the main character is absolutely insufferable. And when you find out like the behind the scenes stuff, which is pretty common out there now, like where he,
Oh, really?
oh yeah, he refused to show up for like fight training, and to do all of the like stunts and everything. So like when in Daredevil, you see all these like long drawn out fight scenes that are like one shots, right? Like they were like, like it's just, obviously like highly choreographed. The actor who played Danny Rand like just didn't show up for that. So like all of the fight scenes in Iron Fist are cut, like, and so it's like 15 different shots because they couldn't get, him doing the thing. So it cuts between him and stuntmen doing stuff. And that's why it looks kind of bad.
If I refused to do a part of my job, I would get fired.
Right?
Like,
yeah, you wouldn't get a second season. Like, that's for sure. Like, I don't know.
I feel like that. I mean, it's not like they were asking him to do something outrageous. Like,
Right.
show up to training is kind of like a normal thing for most jobs.
And like the dude was on Game of Thrones. Like you would think that like, oh yeah, like, doing martial combat is going to be a thing. But no, like apparently he was a complete dick about it. So,
He hasn't worked since, eh?
I don't know. I haven't seen him in
Or we
anything.
haven't seen him in much stuff.
Yeah, I haven't
since.
looked it up.
Oh,
So
interesting. I can tell that we're both getting tired. Like the 2-hour mark has like hit, and we're like, let's talk about Iron Fist.
let's talk about Iron Fist for 20 minutes. In the show, Will is standing over a hospital bed where Margot is sleeping. And Hannibal arrives and they share this look. And it's almost this kind of unconscious thing that Hannibal tells him. It's kind of just like gives him a look of like, I know what you're thinking about doing and I think that you should. And Will turns around and just walks out of the room.
I'm tired because Hannibal is here. He walks in and he just looks like so distressed about this. Like as if he hadn't spent the last few weeks like orchestrating the whole fucking thing. And I'm just like, Hannibal.
Yeah.
Like that's the insufferable part
Yeah.
about Hannibal to me. It's like how could I have ever known that the thing that I specifically told them to do happened?
And this
That's the part where I lose a lot of empathy for him personally.
and this is specifically brought out in the next scene, right? So Will
Yeah.
we see Will like taking out Carlos real quick. He's on the Muskrat farm, Muskrat estate. He takes out Carlos real quick. We find Mason listening to horrible music, discordant music as he sits on his platform above his pig maze. And he's surprised to see Will show up. and calling Will the baby daddy. Will punches him, which is very satisfying to watch.
Yes, love it.
Uh,
And the motherfucker actually like licks his gloves. Who licks their gloves?
So
like,
gross.
oh my God.
Shout out to the actor that does, I don't know his name, that does
Michael
Mason,
Pitt.
because Jesus fucking Christ, like the performance that he puts on, like you just absolutely despise him. Will grabs him and holds him over his pigs, and then and he basically says exactly what you were just saying, right? Like, he just starts asking, do you think it was Margot's idea to get pregnant? Do you think it was your idea to take it from her? Do you think it was my idea to come here? The only thing we have in common is that we have the same psychiatrist. And he pulls him up and he slings him against a wall, and as Mason turns around, Will draws his gun, and he says, if Dr. Lecter had his druthers, you'd be fed your pigs right now. Druthers is I don't know, it's just a weird word to use, but and he says, Dr. Lecter is the one that you want to be feeding to your pigs. This is... So, I want to know your opinion on this. And I know we're both pretty tired at the end of the episode, but like, this obviously we've seen Will transform into something different over the course of season 2. Mm-hmm. It was just revealed to us that he's obviously working with Jack to bring Hannibal down in some way. But now we have him again here doing the same thing that Hannibal does, right? Like using these proxies to presumably kill Hannibal. So like, is Will working for the law? Like, is
for the law? No.
Yeah, is his like... Does Will want to see Hannibal murdered, or does he want to see Hannibal locked up? Like, you would imagine as a law person, which I know he's not technically, right? Like, he's not an FBI agent. He couldn't pass the test, but like, you would imagine that, like, if he's talking
because he was too unstable.
Yeah, Jack would want this man locked up and not fucking murdered by somebody else. But at the same time, we don't know what Jack is willing to do, so we don't know what Will is willing to do.
I think I think
yeah.
we know that Jack is willing to go pretty far. We've actually seen he was set up very well in season 1 as ruthless, right? The way that like he interrogates the kid when he clearly has no legal right to, just the way that he does certain things in season 1. You know that this man is capable of working outside the law in order to get to his own ends, right? So I think we know how far Jack is willing to go. I think we're learning how far Will is willing to go here. And, oh crap, I had a thought and it escaped, but, oh my God, it's going to come back to me and I'm going to kick myself. Oh shoot, it's out of my head. But anyway, I'll try to think about it again and I'll bring it up next week, but
we'll be doing the outro and you'll be like, wait, I got it.
wait. I know now.
This scene ends in this theme of the episode. And I think that obviously this is a really intense episode for a lot of reasons. I talked about at the beginning, like it's kind of it's the low and the high for me. Like the conversation between Will and Hannibal talking about Abigail and Misha is and the teacup is one of my favorite things in media. The build up to that, I think, and is what makes that important. Like, you couldn't really do it out of context, but like with all of the context of the show, it's become so incredibly powerful. And again, to go back to our theme of transformation, like this literally transforms the viewer's brain, because the reveal of Freddie Lounds being alive makes you realize, like you said, Will is in so much more control. Like there's so much more going on that the show kind of showed us and told us would happen, but we actually hadn't seen. So now now there's confirmation that like there's this relationship between Will and Jack, that they're doing something. They're up to something. We don't know what we don't know what it is yet. Like obviously they're trying to get Hannibal, but we don't know how. Like, is he wearing a wire? Like what's happening? Yeah, just what a amazing episode of television. Like it's incredible.
I don't know if you remember, but there was one point where, like, especially in season 1, where Will keeps saying, like, I know who I am, because Hannibal is trying to change him, right?
Yes.
And I was like, he is desperately holding on to that identity that he thinks he has, right? Like that identity that he has formed for himself, that storying of himself. And throughout season 2, I think the show works really, really hard to kind of like make us destroy that idea of Will, of like, I know who I am, and just kind of be like, well, maybe he didn't know who he was. Maybe Hannibal knew all along who he was. But I think here we're seeing how much Will knew who he was. And that is the true transformation, that he is transforming into more of himself. But we thought that himself was what Hannibal thought he was. But Will is proving us that no, he is holding on to what he thinks of himself. And that is not what Hannibal thinks he is. It is in parts because he is tapping into certain things that he wouldn't be otherwise. But I don't know. It's so good.
It's just so good. Take a shot.
So good.
Everybody take a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am incredibly excited. Sorry, I was looking through the screenshots for the next couple of episodes, and there's just a really funny one that's, I don't even know what the context for this is. I'm going to see if I can save it for you. It's just very funny. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's so good, and it's fascinating. I can't wait for you to watch the next one and just absolutely go crazy. So, I think I'm done. I think I'm ready to move to haiku section. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Let's move on to haikus. Do you want to get us started?
Sure. This week I wrote, "Between us is him, his shadow across the wall. We must love him too."
I'm rereading mine this morning and I hate it. I love yours. I'm like, this fucking sucks. Whatever. So one look and I know I must shatter the teacup. Your love has changed me.
It's very good. I don't know why you hate it. It's very good.
I don't know. I hate it this morning.
I understand how that works
happens.
totally. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. I'm not, whatever.
Once something is finished, it becomes alien. Yes. Thank you everybody for listening. We so much appreciate it. We talk about this every episode, but like the stream of comments we get on Spotify and other services, the Discord server popping off, everybody listening as soon as it comes out is very humbling and very gratifying. So thank you for enjoying this show as much as we enjoy making it. It's a real big pleasure for me. So I'm glad that people like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, honestly, like this has been a lot of fun.
Yes.
In a time where fun is kind of a thing to cherish, right? So, yeah, thank you everybody for being part of this adventure.
And if you want more Rude Eat stuff, check out our link tree in the notes. You can find us on Blue Sky. You can find us on YouTube. You can join our Discord, chat with us, watch Mary's reactions as they go through the episodes. Hopefully you're watching today. Are you watching today? Are you...
Oh, absolutely.
Excellent.
I'm going to take a little break to go to the bathroom and have some more coffee. And yeah, I'm going to be watching today.
Excellent. Well, and with that, we'll be back next week. And until then, bon appetit.
Bon appetit. Oh my God. We're getting close to 2.5 hours, Jeremy. Like this is a sickness.
It's ridiculous. Even with like the cuts, like that's a lot, right? Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
You know, better than the last time we spoke, but honestly, still not like well.
You sound a lot better. I can say that.
Yeah, I do feel a lot better, to be honest. I just I was talking on the phone with my mom this morning and I was just like coughing up my life.
Oh no. God, that's like so bad.
This is... And I'm like, it's been so long now. I'm like, I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, this is one of those like Jeremy is an old person things, but like the first time a cold hung around for like 6 or 7 days, I was just like, oh, I'm not 19 anymore. Like I'm not functionally immortal. Like, and I'm real bad about like taking any kind of preventative medicine or actual medicine anyway. Right. So like, I just assume that everything will just go away. So
of course,
yeah.
Of course.
So yeah, why? Who needs antibiotics, right? Like who cares? But yeah, it really sucks when those colds hang around so long. It really does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, like, let's be real. It's not a cold. It was probably the flu or COVID or
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I have a cold. I have a cold. And then eventually I upgraded it. I was like, okay, I have the flu. But honestly, like, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, it was probably COVID.
It
Whatever.
could definitely be
it's
COVID.
just,
Yeah.
You know, like,
The disease that doesn't actually exist, right? According to the world.
exactly. You know, I could be really cynical and make it worse, but I just I don't feel like joking.
No, I don't. No, I totally get you. Totally get you. Yeah.
I'm like, yes, the disease invented by Ukraine, you know?
Oh
Like,
God.
and promoted by Canada
It's all the Canadians'
and Mexico,
fault.
of course.
It's all the Canadians'
course.
fault.
Yeah.
I just saw. I think this is. I DM'd you this, but like, seeing noted Canadian superstar Ryan Reynolds pop up in an episode of The X-Files was not on my checklist today. And I know it's just because like dude was Canadian, so he was like in the actor pool, like, which is why X-Files and Supernatural like share so many actors and everything like that. But it's just very funny to see him, especially when he's credited as Jay DeBoom on IMDb. Like that's got to be the funniest name ever.
Yes, that's true. You know, it's really funny because I wasn't expecting to see him either the first time I was watching the show, and I was like, oh my God, why does this man look so much like Ryan Reynolds? Oh my God, is it? Is it?
Why does this teenage boy look like Ryan Reynolds? Yeah.
I know. And he still has like his baby fat in his cheeks, and I'm just like, oh my God, you're so cute. I love you so much.
Autumn has not been watching X-Files with me. I watched like one episode when she was in the room, and she was like, "This is really annoying me, so I'm just not going to watch these anymore." Like she just kind of decided against it. Yeah. And then the last episode I watched was the cockroach episode, and she is deathly
with Bambi.
Yeah, she's deathly afraid of cockroaches.
Oh no!
So I told her like, you know, thankfully like so this morning like I have it on, and she's like getting ready to go to the horses and everything, and she's like as Ryan Reynolds is giving the eulogy at the beginning, like she pops into the living room, she looks over, and she was like, "Is that?" And I'm like, "Yep, that's the guy."
It's him. That's so funny.
There's something that we haven't talked about on the mic before, a passion that we both share, that we're about to be able to experience next week, that I'm excited. And I want to ask you about it.
Yes, okay.
Daredevil is going to be back on TV.
Oh my God. It's just, I don't usually get all mushy-gushy about superheroes. Okay. I really don't. I really enjoyed phase 1 of the MCU. I thought that it was a lot of fun. It was really cool. And then like for me personally, I found that like the genre became like a little repetitive, and I was like, okay, I feel like I've seen so many of these movies in the past like 5 to 7 years. I'm like, maybe other stories would be better. But Daredevil. I love him so much.
So I'm curious because like, as you said, like, I know like you've been watching the MCU with 11-year-old. And so I knew you were like, you know, had seen superhero stuff. Like, had you watched the MCU stuff? And then like, I guess thinking back, it did come out after Daredevil did come out after like the first Avengers movie. So I guess that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, it did.
So, like, what drew you to watching Daredevil on Netflix? Because, like, I'm just kind of curious. Like, did you have any, like, experience with the comics or the character or anything?
Nope, absolutely none. What drew me to watch it was because I Sorry, I was like, nope, nothing. I'm going to give you nothing with that. But I watched Jessica Jones, and I really liked it, and I figured that I would give Daredevil a try. And I had been told, because I didn't watch it as it was coming out, I watched it a few years later. And
by watch, you mean binged in 2 days.
Yes.
Classic Mary style.
100%. Although, no, wait a second. Because I watched... When did the last season come out? Because I think I watched that live.
Oh, okay. Excellent. I think it's been like 6 or 7 years since the last season came out. So...
Oh, it's possible because it's been a while. Like I remember watching this. Hold on. I have no idea of when things come out anymore.
Me either. I don't even know what fucking year or day it is. So like
2018. Ooh, that makes sense. Yes, I think that's about when I watched it, because I think I watched it because I watched The Defenders, and then there was no last season of Daredevil.
Yeah.
And I watched that, I think, as it aired. Yeah, I think that's the timeline. But so I watched Jessica Jones and I really liked it. And I remember being told that like Daredevil was really dark and graphic, I was told. And so I was like, I don't know if this is going to be for me, but I'm going to give it a try. And oh boy, was it ever for me. So obsessed. So I love Karen Page. I love Karen Page so much.
She's so good.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's amazing how dark that show is. Like we decided to, we were kind of looking for like a kind of a background show, and I was like, hey, I think Autumn suggested like, let's go back to Daredevil. Like I remember that being, and I think when we're looking for like background stuff, we want it to be kind of lighthearted and fun. And I think that the last time we saw Daredevil was when he showed up in She-Hulk.
Oh yeah,
and I don't know if you watched that or not, or saw any of those scenes.
Yes,
but he's
I did,
like,
actually.
he's super flirty, and it's like really funny, and it's really like kind of tongue in cheek. But the actual Daredevil
he does
show,
the walk of shame.
He does the walk of shame.
I love him.
But the actual episode, like Karen Page gets like busted up like 3 or 4 times. He basically murders a dude on a pier. Like it's an extremely like over the top violent show. And Autumn was like, this fight has been going on for like 12 minutes. And I'm like, this is Daredevil. Yeah. This is what happens. Yeah, this is what happens. It's going to get worse. So I don't know if we're gonna. I'll probably continue watching it. I don't know if Autumn will do. So.
Oh, I mean, for sure, I'm going to be watching it as it airs. Like, I've been waiting for this for so long. Like,
I can't believe that they got everybody back. Like, it's so awesome that they're doing this, like, and incorporated it into. I think so as well.
They had to, because I think that's one of the things. Like, what worked so much about this show was the casting, and it was like the way that they approached these characters, right? Like, I don't know. I think that series in particular is kind of magical in the way that it just kind of worked really, really well. Like some really good choices were made, and it was so good. And I think that's the thing about Daredevil that's really attractive to me. It's that there's a very real like fight in Daredevil's mind about doing the wrong thing for the right reasons, and doing the right thing for the wrong reasons as well. Mm-hmm. And I just think that is like such a cool thing to explore, especially through the lens of superhero movies and superhero media. And I think that no other superhero has done it as well as him. Yes, even Batman. I'm going to say that. Even Batman. I don't care. Come for me.
I think a lot of people like Daredevil more than Batman for a lot of different reasons. And that could be one of them. Absolutely. That internal struggle.
Yeah.
Daredevil, Matt Murdock and Elektra kind of have a Hannibal Will vibe. Oh, yeah. I was thinking of just like one, like they're great together, but one is very bad for the other. Like they're, and man, like I remember watching some of those Matt Murdock and Elektra like fight scenes where it's like, we're going to beat each other up, and it's kind of sexy at the same time, going like, I don't know what I'm feeling right now. Like this is what is happening? Watching the first episode though, I had forgotten, how just incredible the lighting is throughout it. Like obviously like his apartment is next to this huge like electronic billboard, so it fills the room with this like alternating yellow and purple light, and that's like kind of weirdly directly from the comics in a way. There's a lot of Daredevil comics that are like really, really stylized like that, with like dark shadows and like that kind of stuff, because it kind of reflects what Matt goes through on a regular basis, which is just a lot of Catholic guilt.
They keep that.
A lot of Catholic guilt.
Yes.
So.
A lot of Catholic guilt. I mean, and that's the thing, right? It's they're using that's I guess another way of showing that internal struggle, right? Like using Catholic guilt to kind of explain that.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen? You've seen the last Spider-Man movie, right? Where all of the other Spider-Men show up.
No, I haven't seen that one actually.
Okay. But you're like, I'm not spoiling you by saying other Spider-Men show up. Okay,
I mean, it was like, listen, I am on the internet.
I kind of figured, but I wanted to check. I saw an interview with the guy, I can't remember his name, who plays Matt Murdock. who
Charlie Cox.
Charlie Cox. So apparently Charlie Cox and Andrew Garfield are like friends IRL, right? So he's flying over from the UK to like Atlanta to film his little piece on the Spider-Man movie. And so he texts Andrew Garfield, because the rumors were everywhere that like all of the old Spider-Man were going to show up. And he texts Andrew Garfield like, hey dude, I think we're in the same movie. And Andrew Garfield responds like, no man, I'm in Spider-Man. And Charlie Cox is like, Charlie Cox is like, no, I'm also in Spider-Man. And Andrew is like, you're not in my script. And he's like, well, you're not in mine either, but I just wanted to like tell you. So they decide.
That is so funny.
And they decide like, oh, hey, like, let's go. We're in the same place at the same time. Like, let's go grab a meal, right? And then they realize like on the way to the meal, like, they can't just show up at a restaurant together. Like everybody, like if a picture is taken, like everybody will put it together that Daredevil and, you know, second Spider-Man guy are hanging out. So Charlie Cox said that they literally like went into a restaurant and requested a table, and they both sat beside each other facing a wall so that they could have dinner and nobody would see who they really are. Which was very funny to me.
Oh no, that's so funny. Yeah. I love them. Yeah. Both of them.
Andrew Garfield is one of the most interesting dudes to me. I don't know if you've ever seen the interview with him with Colbert, where he went on the Colbert show with right after his mom passed. And Stephen Colbert is like kind of known for like he's like a devout Christian, but he talks about like spirituality and things like that in a real interesting way. And he was kind of asking Andrew Garfield like about his mom and everything, and about how he deals with like grief and everything. And Andrew Garfield described, and I'd never heard this before, described grief as all of the love that you weren't able to show the person, like all of that future love, like that's just that coming out in a different way. And I thought that was like, I was like, you're an actor, you shouldn't be able to talk like that. Like, be dumb. Be dumb and pretty, like all actors are. You shouldn't be deep. What are you doing? But it just really,
arguably actors are really, really good at talking about emotion.
Yeah,
right? Because that's
being,
what they have to, you know, that's arguably just you know, just.
But yeah, I always thought that was a really interesting way of looking at grief and love for a person. So.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, that's. After losing my grandpa earlier this year, like I started therapy again just to kind of help me cope with the grief. And that's kind of one of the things that I keep coming back to. It's the fact that like when I feel grief, it's because I'm thinking of like the things that I would like to do or share with him that I can't do anymore or share anymore, right? Or like the questions that I would have liked to ask him and that I can't ask him anymore. And that's, I guess, a manifestation of love and things that I would have liked to do had he been around a little bit longer, or had I been more judicious with like the time that I had with him, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody regrets when they lose somebody. Everybody regrets like oh, I could have done this. Like there's a bunch of coulda, woulda, shouldas. And it's really difficult to grapple with those. Especially like, because I think you begin intensely thinking about them so much in a way that you didn't when they were just like available to you at all times. So like all of that becomes like instantly highlighted. And it's just
scarcity mindset, eh?
Exactly. Yeah. And it just makes it all the more. How did we go from Daredevil to talking about death? I guess it makes sense with Daredevil.
Daredevil. There's so much grief and loss in that.
Daredevil is almost like Sam Winchester with the way that every one of his girlfriends dies. Like it's pretty consistent. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. Ooh, he's got he's got that. Yeah. Okay. Held myself back there.
It's okay. Yeah, there's a bunch of really good Daredevil runs. You mentioned the other day that 11-year-old had seen Daredevil for the first time, like in a cartoon or something. And I was thinking if there were any, because like I read Daredevil growing up as like a teenager when I was in comics and into comics all the time, and I'm still like into comics, like that hasn't changed or anything. But like that was my like kind of first experience with the character.
Right.
And I was kind of thinking, I don't think I actually told you any of this, but like I asked my comics buddy, like, are there any Daredevil comics that are like appropriate for an 11-year-old? And like me and him, who both have a pretty large experience of comic books, like couldn't come up with a single one that we would hand an 11-year-old. Like,
Yeah.
they are all just so either like they go so far into like the Netflix way, right? Like, which is like really, really brutal. Or it's very like comic book and fun until, Karen Page is dead or something like that. Like Karen Page dies again or something else happens to a girlfriend. But yeah, it's rough out there for a Daredevil fan. Like, there's a lot of good stuff, but a lot of it is not child appropriate. So.
Well, so I heard that they were also going to kind of change the like the tone of the series, that they were going to make it like more fun and a little bit more like She-Hulkish almost. And I was like, okay, like, all right, that's interesting. I'm like, that's not quite what drew me to the world in the beginning, but let's give this a try. And I don't know. I'm kind of terrified. I'm not gonna lie. And it's when does it start? It's tomorrow or in 2 days or something.
That's either Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah,
I am so scared.
and it's gonna be a super fun. I think. I mean, watching the trailers, like it still looks like they're going over the top on the trailers, showing the violence, because I think that was a question. Is like, oh, this is going from Netflix to Disney. Disney wouldn't allow like violence, and I'm like, Deadpool and Wolverine is on Disney Plus nowadays. Like we're so far past like the Disney logo, meaning like only G-rated things.
Criminal Minds is on Disney Plus in Canada,
right? Like, I mean, there's so many. There's so much stuff on Disney Plus nowadays. It's like you have to opt in to be like rated R stuff. But so the trailers show a lot of like bones breaking and blood splattering and all this other stuff. But like also like there's some moments of real levity in between it. So I hope they find the balance. And my concern about levity in the MCU is that it's just all. Like at a certain point, it's real easy for the writers to write Doctor Strange or the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy, just like Tony Stark has written, like very quippy, like everything's very quippy, very like fast talky kind of thing. And Daredevil is not like that at all. Like, and he's not like that in the Netflix series. So I hope it doesn't go that direction, but I guess we'll see. So.
That's the thing. I find that like if you watch a little bit further into the MCU phases, like you don't really see the unique personalities of each superhero. And I found that like that was what was so interesting to me in the first phase. And I hope that they don't do that to Daredevil, because he's my baby. He's my little trash.
A little blurbo.
He's my little trash squirrel. I love him.
Speaking of trash squirrels, do you want to talk about Hannibal? Are you ready?
I do want to talk about Hannibal. I'm so excited.
It's a pretty heavy episode.
I'm so excited.
Autumn asked me, she was like, what time are you recording today? And I was like, oh, we'll probably start around 7:30 this morning. And she's like, that's so early. And I was like, yeah, Mary has to leave time enough for her to be able to watch the next episode in the mornings before she starts her day.
And it's also like it works, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, absolutely. I'm up this early and you're up this early. So
okay,
like, let's
well,
do
there
it.
you go.
Yeah.
Neither of us is like, oh yeah, no, I'll make an effort and get up early.
Nope.
Like I got up at 6:30 this morning,
I was up. Me and Autumn were both up at like 5, and she was making
you go.
blueberry biscuits and all of that stuff.
Yum.
Yeah, so she likes to get up and get out early to ride the horses because it gets so hot here. So like especially in the summertime, by 10 or 11 o'clock like a.m. like it's fucking hot outside. And if I had my way, I would wake up at 4 a.m. and like be done with my work day at noon, right? Like that's the way I've always been. I've always wanted to get up early and just knock shit out. So,
yeah, I get that. I think I'm just like, because I'm not feeling well right now. Like I'm like, oh, I want to bake because I heard blueberry biscuits, and I'm like, oh my god, I want to make blueberry biscuits. But then the thought of like having to stand in the kitchen, I'm so unwell. I'm so unwell.
I have a new fun wrinkle with, I don't know what meds are doing this, because I'm taking so many right now, but something, or it could just be the chemo too. Like I don't know which, but
right.
I'm okay. Like if I stand up and like walk to the kitchen, I'm out of breath completely. And like I have to like sit there and like catch my breath, and then I'm fine for like a while. Yeah. But that initial like get up and walk to somewhere, I'm like gasping for air. So like we ordered food the other day. And so I like popped up to go grab the food from outside, and like the poor Uber driver was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay." And literally, he must have thought like I ran across the house or something. Like I didn't. leaning on
He was like, bro, what were you doing?
leaning on the trash can lid, like I'm fine, it's okay. Just give me
no.
give me the enchilada. I gotta go. Bye.
Oh, I feel so bad for that guy. He's like, oh my God, what did I just see? He's like keeping an eye on the news to see if anybody died at that address.
We made the mistake last night of trying to order food because we were just being lazy. And we had actually made food to make today. Like we had pre-made stuff like to marinate or whatever. And so Autumn was like, I don't really like, I've already cooked. I'm like, well, let's just order something. But I forgot that it's Mardi Gras. So like,
oh yeah.
yeah. So, Uber Eats like shows you where your driver is when they're going to pick up your food.
Yeah.
And like it had been a while. And so I look at the map and the dude is just like flailing all over the map. And I'm like, either he's lost or like maybe there's a road closure. And then Autumn looked at me and she goes, Jeremy, it's fucking Mardi Gras this weekend. Like I'm sure the parade routes are all over and I was like, oh yeah. So they just, and then like 10 minutes later we get the notification like Uber has canceled your order. I was like, okay, that's fair. That's totally fair. So
oh no.
yeah. NBD. So
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Stuff. I totally get that. Like the amount of times that like I cooked and I'm like, okay, this is going to be ready. Just need to heat it up. Done. And then I'm like, I don't want to eat that anymore. I've already cooked it. I'm good.
So dumb. but it's just how your
I
brain
hate my
works
brain
sometimes.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
All right.
Hannibal.
Speaking of cooking and eating, I'm going to go blow my nose for a second and I will be right back. I'm going to mute my mic for you also.
It's fine.
Okay.
All right.
Feeling better. I have my bowl of coffee. I made a literal bowl
A
of coffee.
bowl of coffee. Like, are you drinking it like a cat? Like, what are you doing? Is there a straw involved? What do you mean a bowl of coffee?
You know those like really big, like huge mugs?
Uh-huh.
That kind of look like a small bowl?
Okay. So not like a
That's what
literal
I'm
bowl,
drinking.
but like a
Not a
bowl
literal
with a
bowl.
handle on it.
Although French people do drink coffee in a bowl and they just like drink it like
What?
by holding it and like not like a cat, but just, you know.
Like a cereal bowl? Like you would
Yeah,
drink
like a
milk out
cereal
of like
bowl.
like the cereal milk, like you would drink that
Yeah.
out of and they drink coffee like that?
They drink coffee like that. Yeah.
Because do they not have handles in France? Is that
I think so. Multiple reasons, to be honest.
I'm sure there's a ton of historical reasons. I'm being flip, but I just the idea I figure that just seems like something I would have seen people make fun of for some reason, especially because America hates France for some reason, which I've never really understood. But yeah, that's just
Which, by the way, makes no sense because we were so helpful
Y'all were
in helping
so
you gain your
helpful.
own independence.
Yeah, like
just saying.
I never understood like the freedom fries thing. I don't know if you remember that, but like that was such
yes, I do remember
just such a
that.
bonkers fucking thing that came out of 2001. Like we're gonna change the name of French fries. And like what?
I also loved when people started like pouring wine into whatever, the harbor or whatever, and French people were like, "It doesn't matter, they already bought it."
We've already gotten paid. Do what you want with the wine. Don't care. That's the same thing. Like I remember when Budweiser, like I don't remember if they sponsored a trans person or like made them a sponsor or something. And people, when like Kid Rock was buying cases of beer and like shooting them with shotguns, I'm like, I don't think Budweiser cares. Like you've already bought the beer. Kid
So long
Rock.
as you bought it, you're
Yeah,
all
yeah.
good. Like
Kid Rock,
they don't care.
you're a fucking idiot.
Kid Rock is an idiot.
Okay. Now we really have to start talking about Hannibal because if we get on Kid Rock,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for a while. So
Okay. All right. Let's get started.
And the conclusion that I've drawn is that you are